"What's the address?" I asked. Rachel went quiet. Not confused quiet, not checking the calendar quiet. It was the careful silence people use when they're deciding which version of the truth will require the least cleanup. "Mom," she said finally, "you don't need the address." I had her pecan bar recipe open on the kitchen counter, the one she always called mine when she served it and hers when someone asked for it. "How am I supposed to come if I don't know where you live? You can watch online like everyone else." For a second, I thought I had misunderstood. I was 69 years old, not 99. But Rachel had started speaking to me slowly whenever she wanted me to accept something quickly. Watch what online? The housewarming. The tour. Ben set up a live stream so nobody feels left out. Nobody feels left out. Behind me, through the open basement door, I could see the corner of a rolled rug that belonged to Rachel. Her winter coats were in my hall closet. Her mail was on my dining room table. There were 27 boxes in my garage, plus a lamp she hated but refused to get rid of, and a bread machine she had used once in 2018. My daughter's life had been living in my house for 5 months. I just wasn't allowed to know where she lived. I found out about the housewarming from my nephew Nate. He called Thursday afternoon while I was standing at the kitchen sink peeling the label off a pickle jar. I saved glass jars for no defensible reason. My husband, David, used to say that if civilization collapsed, I could rebuild it with rubber bands, clean jars, and the twist ties from bread bags. David had been gone 4 years. The rubber bands had outlived him. Nate was 38 and lived in Indianapolis. He had the nervous friendliness of a man who always believed he had called at a bad time. "Aunt Ev, quick question. Is parking weird at Rachel's new place?" I held the damp jar under the faucet. "I wouldn't know. Oh, I figured you'd been over." "No." There was a pause, then a faint clicking sound. Nate worked in insurance and typed during every conversation, as if documenting us for future litigation. "Well, the invitation says not to park on Hawthorne because the neighbors get fussy. I thought maybe I could leave my car at your place and ride with Marcus. My place is 25 minutes in the opposite direction." "Right. Okay. Bad plan." "What invitation?" The clicking stopped. Nate wasn't a gifted liar. When he was 9, he broke a ceramic angel at my mother's house and blamed a medium-sized earthquake. At 38, he still had the same panicked inhale. "I assumed Rachel told you." "Told me what? Saturday." "The house thing." I dried my hands on a dish towel. "Her housewarming?" She called it a reveal, but yes. I looked toward my dining room, where 3 packages addressed to Rachel sat beside the bowl of wax fruit David had hated. One contained bathroom faucets. One contained drawer pulls. The third was long and flat and had arrived with a dent Rachel blamed me for, though it had come off the truck that way. "What time?" I asked. 6. But I may be mixed up. "You aren't. I can send you the invitation." "No, honey, don't do that." Nate began apologizing, which made me feel worse. I told him he had done nothing wrong, asked about his drive, and listened to a long explanation of construction on Interstate 70. We both pretended the conversation had recovered. Before we hung up, he said, too casually, "I'm sure she just thought you already knew." That was the kindness everyone offered when the other possibility was impolite. Rachel answered on the 4th ring. In the background, something buzzed, followed by Ben saying, "That's not level." "Hey, Mom, can I call you back? We're hanging the dining room light. Is Saturday your housewarming?" The buzzing stopped. Rachel sighed. "It's not really a housewarming." Nate called it one. "It's more of a small reveal for the people who followed the renovation. Nate sells commercial insurance. He followed it. So did I. You know what I mean. I did, unfortunately. For 5 months, I had followed the renovation in 6-inch squares. Rachel had spread paint samples across my dining table and asked whether White Dove felt warmer than Snowbound. "White Dove looks like mayonnaise," I told her. "It does not. Expensive mayonnaise." She laughed so hard she snorted, then accused me of making her lose confidence in the entire first floor. 2 days later, she chose White Dove. I knew the kitchen cabinet handles had been back-ordered twice. I knew the original fireplace tile turned purple under warm light. I knew Ben had dented the laundry room wall while carrying in a utility sink and patched it without telling Rachel. I knew she wanted a reading corner even though she had not finished a book since the second Bush administration. I knew everything about that house except where it was. "Are Ben's parents coming Saturday?" I asked. "They're already here. They came in yesterday." "What about Nate?" "Yes." "Marcus?" "He was invited. My son had not mentioned it." Marcus and I could go a week without speaking and still both consider the relationship active. Rachel called me 3 times a day and apparently considered me the general public. Who else? "Mom, I'm not reading you the guest list. I'm trying to understand why I'm not on it. It's a very small group. Your cousin is driving 3 hours. He's excited about the renovation. I know where you hit a crack in the kitchen ceiling. That's exactly the kind of thing I mean." I sat down at the table. The package with the drawer pulls was under my elbow. "What kind of thing?" "You correct people. You point things out. If I say the color is cloud white, you'll tell everyone it's white dove. It is white dove. See?" She gave a short laugh, but I didn't join her. In the background, Ben said something I couldn't make out. Rachel covered the phone and answered him. Their voices had that clipped domestic rhythm couples develop when one person is holding a heavy object and the other is offering spiritual guidance instead of physical help. When she came back, she sounded softer. "Look, I don't want this to turn into a whole situation. It wasn't a situation until I had to hear about it from Nate. I was going to send you the link." "The link?" "Ben's streaming the tour. People can comment and everything. That sounds lovely. Don't do that." "Do what?" "That voice." I looked down at my hand and saw I was rubbing the edge of Rachel's shipping label with my thumb. "I just asked for the address," I said. That was when she told me to watch online like everyone else. I asked if Ben didn't want me there. It was an unfair question, and I knew it as soon as I said it. Ben had his faults. He could turn loading a dishwasher into a constitutional debate. He borrowed tools and returned them cleaner but somehow less functional. He also brought me coffee on the anniversary of David's death without mentioning why, which was exactly the right way to do it. "This isn't about Ben," Rachel said. "Then tell me what it is about. It's one evening. We've been under so much stress, and I want it to feel easy. And I make it difficult? You make family things emotional. I am family. That's not what I meant. It was, though. Maybe not all of what she meant, but enough." I heard Ben say, "Rach, I need you." She lowered her voice. "There'll be other dinners." "How would I know? I don't have the address." "Mom, go help your husband. Are you mad?" It was such a Rachel question. She had been asking it since she was old enough to recognize silence, but not old enough to understand that sometimes the answer ought to inconvenience her. "I'm embarrassed," I said. "Oh, come on. That's what I am. You don't need to be." The mercy in her voice nearly did me in. She promised to text the live stream link and told me the tour would start around 6:30. Then she asked whether a package from Pottery Barn had arrived. I turned my head and looked at the long, dented box. "Yes. Can you open it and check the frame?" I thought the dent was my fault. I was upset. "Just check it, please. If the mirror's cracked, I need to know tonight." I almost laughed. It wasn't funny, but sometimes the nerve of a person achieves a kind of architecture. "I'll look," I said. "Thank you. I love you. I love you too." That part was true, which was the trouble. After we hung up, I opened the box. The mirror was fine. I sent Rachel a photograph, careful to include the undamaged corners. She responded with 3 hearts, and a minute later, the link to her housewarming. No address. That evening, I went into the garage to get a jar of pasta sauce from the pantry shelf. Rachel's boxes took up one entire wall. Some were labeled in her neat block handwriting. Kitchen, open first, winter, office. One said, "Decide later," which described half the objects Rachel owned and most of the conversations she avoided. The empty space where the cedar chest had been was darker than the concrete around it. My mother had bought that chest secondhand when I was 11. She kept blankets in it and tucked bars of lavender soap between them. After she died, it sat in my basement until Rachel decided it would look perfect beneath the front windows of the new house. I had spent 6 weekends restoring it. The top had a water ring shaped like Ohio and a burn mark from the winter my father tried smoking a pipe. I sanded carefully around both. Rachel wanted the marks gone. I left faint traces because a thing without a past is just merchandise. Ben picked it up Tuesday while I was at the cardiologist. "Got the chest, thank you," he had texted. I'd sent back a thumbs up. Standing in the garage, I wondered whether he had known then that I wasn't invited. I wondered whether he had looked at the shelves, the boxes, the old folding chairs they planned to collect Friday, and felt even a flicker of shame. Then I wondered why I was working so hard to locate shame in Ben when Rachel had been perfectly clear. Saturday evening, I made soup. It was 90 degrees outside, but soup required chopping, and chopping gave my hands someplace to put themselves. At 6:28, I opened the link. The video began with Rachel standing beside a blue front door, smiling too widely. She wore the green blouse I had given her for her birthday, and earrings she once claimed made her look like a substitute art teacher. Comments floated up the side of the screen. "Gorgeous, so excited. Finally." Behind her, people laughed. I recognized Nate's voice and the high, delighted squeal of Ben's mother, Carol, who apparently found entryways thrilling. Rachel waved at the camera. "Welcome to our home." Our home. The words should not have hurt. I had never expected my name on a door. Still, I sat straighter when Ben swung the camera into the living room. There was the cedar chest beneath 3 tall windows, glowing honey brown in the evening light. Rachel rested her hand on the lid. "This is a vintage piece we rescued. It was in rough shape, but now it's one of my favorite things in the whole house. We rescued." I looked at the pale crescent where the water ring had been. The camera passed over it too quickly for anyone else to notice. Rachel guided everyone toward the kitchen. She talked about delays, compromises, and the satisfaction of seeing a plan come together. Ben turned the camera toward himself and said, "Mostly her plan," and people laughed. Then Rachel slipped her arm around him. "This whole process taught us that we can build something entirely on our own." I closed the laptop. The kitchen went quiet except for the refrigerator motor and the soft bubbling of soup I no longer wanted. 9 minutes. That was how long I managed to watch like everyone else. My phone lit up with a message from Rachel. "Are you watching?" Another message followed, this one with a heart. I carried the phone into the garage and switched on the overhead light. 27 boxes waited against the wall. The lamp, the bread machine, 4 dining chairs, 2 plastic bins of Christmas decorations, a framed college photograph Rachel had insisted was too precious to trust to the movers. For the first time, the clutter didn't look like evidence that my daughter still needed me. It looked like an answer. I raised my phone and took a picture, then another. I photographed the boxes from both ends of the garage. I photographed the 4 dining chairs, the lamp, and the plastic tubs stacked beneath David's old fishing rods. When I finished, I had 11 pictures and no idea what I planned to do with them. The soup boiled over. I hurried inside and pulled the pot off the burner. Broth hissed beneath it, filling the kitchen with the smell of scorched onion. My phone buzzed on the counter. Rachel had sent a photograph from the party. She and Ben stood under the dining room light, holding champagne glasses. Nate was behind them, making rabbit ears over Ben's head, a habit that had stopped being funny around 1997 but had somehow survived. "Wish you were here," Rachel wrote. I stared at it until the words blurred. There are sentences designed to comfort the person who says them. "Wish you were here," spoken by the person who had made sure you weren't, was one of them. I put the phone face down. The next morning, I woke at 5:12 with a clear, bright certainty that I had overreacted. It arrived before I even opened my eyes. Rachel was my daughter. It had been one party, one clumsy sentence. Families survived worse things every day and still managed to pass the mashed potatoes without bloodshed. I could delete the pictures, make coffee, and wait for her to call. By Thanksgiving, the exclusion would become a story told with a wince and a little laugh. Remember when Rachel forgot to invite her own mother? She hadn't forgotten. That was the part my mind kept trying to sand smooth. I got up, put on my robe, and went into the garage. In daylight, the boxes looked less accusatory. They were cardboard. That was all. Cardboard did not choose sides. I started reading the labels. Dining room fragile books / Ben. Rachel shoes do not stack, misc, important. One box simply said things, which made me laugh hard enough to surprise myself. I opened none of them. I did, however, find the red-handled scissors I had been looking for since April. They were sitting on top of a box beside a roll of Rachel's packing tape. I took the scissors inside. It felt like the first division of property after a minor war. At 7:30, I made coffee and typed a message. Please arrange to collect everything you and Ben have stored here within 30 days. That includes the garage, basement, front closet, and the packages in the dining room. I won't be able to accept deliveries or coordinate with contractors anymore. I am also having my locks changed, so please return your key when you pick up the first load. I read it twice. The word please appeared once. The word sorry did not appear at all. I sent it at 7:42. Rachel called at 7:43. What is this? Good morning. Mom, what is this message? It's fairly specific. Are you throwing our things out? No, because that's what it sounds like. I gave you 30 days to collect them. Collect them where? We don't have room yet. You have a whole house. The office isn't finished. The garage floor is being sealed next week, and we still need the basement inspected. Then you have 30 days to make a plan. She made a sound that was half laugh, half gasp. This is because of last night. It is because the arrangement no longer works for me. It worked for you on Friday. On Friday, I still believed I was helping someone whose home I might eventually be allowed to enter. Allowed? Oh my God. I heard rustling. Then Ben's muffled voice. Rachel had either put me on speaker or pressed the phone to her chest, where I was supposed to become less audible. Are you with Ben? I asked. He lives here. So I've heard. Can you not be sarcastic for 1 minute? I'm new at it. I need the practice. That silenced her briefly. A cabinet door closed in the background. Ben said, What's happening? My mother is evicting our boxes. I'm not evicting anything, I said. Boxes don't have legal residency. You're on speaker, Rachel said. I assumed. Ben came closer. Morning, Evelyn. Good morning, Ben. Can we just slow this down? I gave you 30 days. I mean, emotionally. That may take longer. Another silence. I pictured their new kitchen from the live stream. Pale counters, gold handles, the bowl of green apples Rachel had probably purchased specifically to appear like people who ate fruit lived there. Ben cleared his throat. I know last night was awkward. You waved at me through a camera. I waved at everybody. Yes. Rachel broke in. We included you. You sent me a link. We sent lots of people a link. That was the problem. No, the problem is that you decided one evening erases everything else. I took my coffee to the table and sat beside her packages. What does everything else include? All the time we spend together. How much I call you. The things we do for you. I waited. Rachel's voice changed. What? I'm listening. I check on you constantly. You call me. Yes, that's generally how checking on someone works. Sometimes. What is that supposed to mean? It means you called me Tuesday from the tile store to ask if beige grout looked dirty. Wednesday you called because Ben had moved the recycling bin and you thought it was passive-aggressive. Thursday you called to ask if your mirror was broken. I also ask how you are. You ask while you're doing other things. So now my phone calls aren't good enough. That isn't what I said, it's what you meant. Her voice had sharpened in the way it did when she sensed a conversation might move somewhere she had not prepared to go. I could have followed her there. I could have argued about call logs and holidays and every time I had shown up. I could have built the ledger she was already accusing me of keeping. Instead, I looked at the bowl of wax fruit. I'm not billing you for the past, I said. I'm changing what I agree to in the future. By changing the locks on your own daughter? You didn't want me to know your address. That is not the same thing. No, I already know where I live. Ben coughed. I couldn't tell whether he was hiding a laugh or choking on coffee. Rachel heard it too. "This isn't funny." "No," I said, "it isn't." She announced that they would come Tuesday evening for some of the boxes, emphasizing some as if she were negotiating the release of hostages. Then she hung up without saying, "She loved me." I sat at the table until my coffee cooled. At 9, Marcus called. My son never called before noon on a Sunday unless someone was dead or Rachel had gotten to him first. "What did you do?" he asked. "Good morning to you too. Rachel says you gave her an eviction notice. I sent a text. She read it to me." "Did she do voices?" "She did yours." "I hope it was flattering." "It was British for some reason. That made me laugh, and Marcus did too. His laugh was lower than David's but started the same way, with one quiet breath through the nose. Then he said, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "Mom." "I'm embarrassed. About not being invited. About finding out from Nate. About asking to be included after the decision had already been made. About sitting in my kitchen watching strangers type heart emojis under my daughter's new front door. They weren't all strangers. That improves it considerably." Marcus went quiet. "Did you know?" I asked. "That you weren't going? That I wasn't invited?" "I assumed you were. Your name didn't come up." "Did you go?" "No." "Why not?" "I didn't want to." Marcus could make 4 words sound like a locked gate. He had always been different from Rachel. When he was upset, he withdrew until everybody else became too tired to follow. Rachel pulled people closer and then resented them for seeing the mess. For years, I had told myself she needed more from me. Maybe she was simply louder about needing it. "The invitation had a note asking us not to share the address," Marcus said. "With me? It didn't say with you. But you thought that was strange. I thought the whole invitation was strange. There was a dress suggestion, Mom, for a living room. What was it? Elevated casual? What does that mean?" I wore sweatpants at home in protest. I smiled despite myself. Then Marcus said, "30 days is fair. I didn't ask for a judgment." "I know. That's why you're getting one for free. Your sister thinks I'm punishing her." "Are you?" I ran a finger around the rim of my mug. "Maybe a little." "At least you know. You say that like it's admirable." "No. I say it because if you pretend you're just reorganizing the garage, you're going to turn into Dad." David could maintain an angry silence so calmly that you sometimes mistook it for peace. It was not a comparison I enjoyed. "I'm not trying to hurt her," I said. "You want her to notice she hurt you." "Yes. That's different, but not as different as people like to think." We talked for another 10 minutes, mostly about nothing. His washing machine was making a grinding noise. He had seen a hawk carrying something he preferred not to identify. Before hanging up, he asked me to call if Rachel became cruel. "She isn't cruel," I said automatically. "No," Marcus replied. "She's scared and mean when she's cornered. Different problem." Monday afternoon, a locksmith named Denise replaced the deadbolt on the side door and rekeyed the front. She was around my age with silver braids and a tool belt that made me feel underdressed in my own hallway. She asked whether I wanted 4 copies. 2, I said. Always smart to have a spare. 1 is the spare. She handed me the keys and an invoice for $186. It was more than I expected. Apparently, emotional boundaries came with a service fee. Tuesday at 6:15, I heard a key scraping unsuccessfully in the side door. Then again. The doorbell rang. Rachel stood on the porch with her old key in one hand. Ben was behind her holding a bundle of flattened moving boxes. A rented cargo van waited at the curb. "You actually did it," Rachel said when I opened the door. "I told you I would. You could have waited until we got our things." "Why?" "Because this is humiliating." I almost asked who was watching, but stopped myself. Ben lifted the flattened boxes slightly. "Can we come in?" I stepped aside. Rachel walked past me and stared at the cleared hooks beside the door. I had taken down her gardening hat, an old gray sweater, and the canvas tote she used when she came over. They were folded in a grocery bag by the garage entrance. "You packed my sweater? It's yours. I know it's mine. That's why I packed it." Her face changed. The anger stayed, but something frightened moved beneath it. Ben opened the garage door. Rachel stood looking at the rows of boxes, the lamp, the chairs, and the numbered sticky notes I had placed on each group to make loading easier. "You made an inventory," she said. "No." I counted. "For what?" "So neither of us can say later that something disappeared." She turned toward me. "Do you really think I would accuse you of that?" I looked at the dented mirror box still sitting in my dining room. Rachel followed my eyes. For once, she had nothing ready to say. "That was different," she said. "Things usually are when they happen to you." Ben set the flattened boxes against the garage wall. "How about we load first and argue after?" "I'm not arguing," Rachel and I said together. He looked from one of us to the other. That was unsettling. Under other circumstances, Rachel would have laughed. I saw the impulse rise in her and get pushed back down. She pulled the grocery bag from the hook and looked inside. "My gardening hat?" "You bought it." "I leave it here because I garden here." "You pulled weeds twice because you complain when I try to help." "I complained because you removed the peonies. They look dead." It was February. Ben turned away quickly, but not before I saw his mouth twitch. Rachel shoved the hat back into the bag. "This is what you do. You save things up." "Peonies?" "Resentments. You say everything is fine, and then suddenly it isn't, and I'm standing in a garage looking at my entire life with numbered stickers on it. They aren't evidence tags. They show which items are in the photographs. That does not make it better." I couldn't disagree. Ben unfolded a box and began reinforcing the bottom with packing tape. He had brought his own tape gun, a red metal contraption that made an aggressive ripping noise. He was one of those men who came prepared to complete a task even when he had no idea what task the women around him were actually performing. "We can fit the kitchen boxes and maybe the chairs," he said. "The tubs can go in the basement at the house." "The basement smells damp," Rachel said. "It doesn't smell damp. It does near the utility room. That's concrete. Concrete can be damp." Ben glanced at me. "This has been the renovation." "I know," I said. Rachel looked at me sharply. "What does that mean?" "It means I've heard both sides of the basement smell." She folded her arms. "Because I talked to you." "Yes." "Because you're my mother." "Yes." "And now you're acting like every conversation was some burden." "I didn't say that. You keep implying it." "I liked that you called." The anger slipped on her face, just for a moment. I continued before I could lose my nerve. "I liked being part of the decisions. I liked knowing what was happening with you. I just didn't understand that knowing which grout you chose was as close as I was going to get to the actual house." Rachel's expression hardened again. "You're not banned from the house. Then why wouldn't you give me the address?" "Because I knew you'd react like this. You knew I would react badly to being excluded, so you excluded me to avoid my reaction?" Ben stopped taping. Rachel stared at me. I wanted one night without tension. What tension? This? She spread both hands between us as if I had brought the entire situation in with me. I wanted to tell her that I had not been there to create any tension. That had been the arrangement. I stayed in my kitchen, 9 minutes away by livestream and an unknown number of miles by road. Instead, I picked up the box labeled "Kitchen," open first, and carried it to the van. It was heavier than I expected. Ben rushed after me. "Evelyn, I've got that. So do I. At least let me take one side." We carried it together. The evening air was thick and hot, and somewhere nearby a lawn mower whined with the persistence of a dental drill. Ben opened the van's rear doors and guided the box inside. Rachel remained in the garage. Ben lowered his voice. "I thought you were okay with the online thing." "Why?" "She said you didn't like crowds. I attended your mother's 70th birthday at a bowling alley." "Yeah. You bowled a 94. 98. Sorry." I watched him push the box against the van wall. "Did Rachel tell you I preferred to watch online?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "Not exactly." "What exactly did she tell you? That she was handling it?" The phrase sat between us. And did it sound handled when I called Sunday? No. But you went ahead with the party. His jaw tightened. People were already coming. Of course. I'm not saying it was right. You aren't saying much of anything. That's usually safer with you two. I looked toward the garage. Rachel was ripping numbered sticky notes off the boxes and crumpling them in one fist. Safer for whom? I asked. Ben didn't answer. We loaded 7 boxes, 2 chairs, the lamp, and the bread machine. Rachel insisted they had room for the bread machine because it could go on top of the dryer. Ben said appliances should not be stored on dryers. Rachel said it was not an appliance in any meaningful sense because no one used it. They argued for 5 minutes and loaded it anyway. When Ben carried out the last box, Rachel stayed behind. She stood near David's workbench, rubbing the old key between her thumb and forefinger. "You could have told me no," she said. "When? Any of those times I asked to leave something here. Any package, any contractor. You could have said it was too much." "I know. You always say yes, and then you act like we forced you." The words landed because there was truth in them. Not all the truth, but enough to hurt. "I should have said no sooner," I told her. Rachel seemed startled that I agreed. I went on. But my saying yes to the boxes did not mean I agreed to be treated like one. That is so dramatic. Probably. Do you hear yourself? Constantly. It's exhausting. Her mouth almost moved toward a smile again. Rachel and I had always shared a weakness for the wrong joke at the worst moment. David used to say we could interrupt our own executions to complain about the rope. She looked toward the van. "I wasn't trying to hurt you." "I know. Then why are you acting like I did it on purpose? You don't have to intend a thing for it to be the thing you did." She placed the old key on David's workbench. It made a small metallic click. "I'm not apologizing while you're behaving this way." "I didn't ask you to." "Yes, you did. This whole performance is you asking." "No. This is me clearing my garage." Rachel's eyes filled, which made me instantly want to take back half of what I had said. That reflex was so fast it frightened me. I had spent years interpreting her pain as instructions. She blinked hard, grabbed the grocery bag, and walked to the van. Ben returned for the second dining chair. At the garage door, he paused. "I'll bring more boxes Saturday. That's fine." He glanced toward Rachel, who was waiting in the passenger seat with her face turned toward the window. "For what it's worth," he said, "I should have called you before the party." "What would you have said?" He considered that. "I don't know." "That's probably why you didn't." He nodded once and carried the chair away. I stood in the driveway while the van pulled off. Rachel did not look at me. Ben lifted 2 fingers from the steering wheel. Back inside, I found her key on the workbench. It no longer opened anything, but I carried it into the kitchen and set it in the junk drawer beside dead batteries, spare buttons, and 3 keys no one could identify. The garage had visible gaps now. The empty spaces should have felt good. Instead, they made the remaining boxes appear more deliberate. The next afternoon, a delivery truck stopped in front of my house. The driver came up the walk carrying 2 boxes from a home furnishings company. Both were addressed to Rachel. "I'm not accepting those," I said through the screen door. He shifted the boxes against his hip. "This is the address. It used to be." "You moved?" "No." He looked past me into the house, perhaps hoping to spot the saner person responsible for the sentence. "The person on the label moved," I explained. "You want me to mark refused?" "Yes." He scanned both boxes and carried them back to the truck. Rachel called 12 minutes later. "Did you refuse my dishes?" "I refused 2 boxes. I didn't ask what was inside. They're the pasta bowls. You have other bowls. That's not the point." "No, it isn't. I can't change every shipping address overnight. You knew your address before I did. Why do you keep saying that?" "Because it remains true." She exhaled directly into the phone. "Those bowls are discontinued. They may attempt delivery at your house. They won't. I used your address because the road isn't recognized by half the delivery systems yet. Then call the company. You know what? Fine. Good." "No, not good. You're enjoying this." I looked out the window at the truck pulling away. For perhaps 3 seconds, I had enjoyed it. Watching a box leave my porch felt like watching someone take a single brick off my chest. "I'm enjoying not automatically solving it," I said. "That's a lovely thing to say to your daughter. I've said many lovely things. They didn't seem to help." She hung up. My sister Joan called that evening. "Nate says there's trouble," she said. "Nate needs a hobby. He has woodworking. He needs a second hobby." Joan ignored that. She was 2 years older and had been ignoring my deflections since the Eisenhower administration. "Rachel asked if she could keep some boxes here," she said. "What did you tell her?" "I told her my second bedroom is not a distribution center." "Thank you. I didn't do it for you. I just got rid of 20 years of your brother-in-law's golf magazines. I'm not replacing them with Rachel's throw pillows." "They aren't all throw pillows." "How many are throw pillows?" "I don't know. I didn't open anything." "Good. Never look inside other people's boxes. It gives you information you then have to die with." I smiled and carried the phone into the living room. Joan's voice softened. "She's upset." "So am I. She says you won't talk to her. I talked to her twice today. She means you won't talk the way she wants." "That is closer. You two are alike. Don't be insulting. I'm serious, Ev. You both want the other person to confess first. You could lose months over deciding whose turn it is. I'm not waiting for a confession. What are you waiting for?" I looked toward the hall closet. Without Rachel's coats, the wooden hangers knocked together every time the air conditioner came on. I don't know yet. Sunday arrived with the force of a canceled habit. Rachel usually came by sometime after 11. She rarely committed in advance. Sometimes she brought Ben. Sometimes a bag of laundry she claimed she preferred washing in my machine. Sometimes only herself and an appetite. I always had enough food ready without admitting I expected her. At 10:30, I took a chicken out of the refrigerator. At 10:40, I put it back. I made one sandwich and ate it standing over the sink. At 12:15, my phone rang. Rachel's name filled the screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Hi," she said cautiously. "Hi." For a moment, neither of us spoke. I could hear traffic on her end and the clicking of a turn signal. Then she said, "Do you remember whether the fireplace tile looked more blue in the morning or at night?" I closed my eyes. "Rachel?" "What?" "I'm asking because the grout is pulling green, and Ben says it was always like that." "I don't know. You do. We talked about it. We talked about a house I've never seen. That doesn't mean you don't remember." "No," I said. "It means you should ask someone who's been inside." I ended the call before she could answer. My hand shook afterward, but only a little. That bothered me more than the argument had. I put the phone on the counter and pressed my palm flat against the cool laminate. There had been no shouting, no insult I could quote later to Joan. I had simply refused to remember a tile for a room I had never stood in. It felt both reasonable and vicious. The doorbell rang 20 minutes later. Marcus stood outside holding a paper bag darkened with grease at the bottom. "I brought lunch," he said. "I ate." He glanced at the single plate beside the sink. "You made one sandwich. How do you know it was one?" "There's one knife, and you've been using the same plate since I was 12. That plate has outperformed most people I know." He lifted the bag. "Onion rings." I let him in. Marcus was 46, 3 years older than Rachel, though strangers usually guess the opposite. Rachel moved through life at a speed that made her seem permanently young. Marcus had been born looking mildly disappointed by the management. He put the bag on the table and took out 2 hamburgers, the onion rings and a chocolate milkshake. "I didn't order a milkshake," I said. "I did. You hate chocolate." "I know." He pushed it toward me. "David used to bring me chocolate milkshakes when I was angry. Not sad. If I was sad, he made tea. He claimed dairy products were too cheerful for grief." I sat down. Marcus looked toward the dining room packages. "Those hers? Until she collects them." "Did she call you?" "She wanted to know about the fireplace tile." He closed his eyes. "Of course she did." I hung up on her. "Good. It didn't feel good." That's because you like answering questions. I like being helpful. You like being right. That too. We ate for a minute without talking. Marcus removed the pickles from his hamburger and lined them along the edge of his wrapper. He had done that all his life. When he was young, I used to eat them. Now he ate them last, separately, as if they were dessert for a very dull person. Rachel called me after you hung up, he said. I assumed you didn't bring lunch because you sensed a disturbance in the universe. She wanted me to tell you that you're proving her point. What point? That you use help to control people. The onion ring in my hand stopped halfway to my mouth. Do you think that? Marcus folded his wrapper into smaller and smaller rectangles. Sometimes. It would have been easier if he had answered quickly. A quick answer could have been dismissed as sibling irritation. Marcus never gave me the easy version. When, I asked, you don't order people around. You make yourself necessary, then you get hurt when they don't organize their lives around how necessary you've been. That sounds like something your sister said. It's something Dad said. The room seemed to shift. Your father said that about me. He said it about both of you. Both of who? You and Rachel. I took a drink of milkshake. It was too thick to move through the straw. When did this conversation happen? Years ago. How many years? Marcus shrugged. 10, maybe. And you're mentioning it now? You didn't ask before. You could have volunteered. You don't like volunteers. You like recruits. I stared at him. He smiled slightly. That one was mine. There were days when having raised intelligent adults felt like a clerical error. Marcus leaned back. I'm not saying Rachel's right about the party. She isn't. What she did was lousy. Thank you. But the boxes didn't appear in your garage by force. I know that. Do you? I pushed the onion rings toward him. Why did you stop coming on Sundays? The question surprised both of us. Marcus looked at the bag, then at me. I never came on Sundays. You used to. When Dad was alive. You could have kept coming. You could have invited me. You don't need an invitation. Rachel didn't. There it was, small and clean. I thought about all those Sundays I had cooked enough for whoever might appear. In my mind, the door had been open to both of them. Rachel walked through it. Marcus didn't. I had treated that as evidence of personality rather than a choice either of us was making. You always say you don't like family routines, I said. I don't like showing up and finding out whether there's a chair. There was always a chair. Physically, yes. I wanted to defend myself. I had attended every one of his work promotions, even the luncheon where the chicken tasted like wet insulation. I had helped him move twice. I called on his birthday at exactly 8 in the morning because that was when he was born. Love could be proven with records if one was willing to make the courtroom unbearable. Instead, I picked up a pickle from his wrapper and ate it. That was mine, he said. You left it unattended. He reached for an onion ring. We did not solve anything. That may have been why the conversation felt honest. Before he left, Marcus stood in the garage and examined the remaining boxes. You want help getting these out? They're coming Saturday. You gonna be here? Where else would I be? He glanced at me. You could go somewhere. After he drove away, I called Linda. David's sister answered with, Who died? No one. Then you've dialed the wrong number. I know I haven't called in a while. 8 months. It has not been 8 months. I got my new sofa in November. You said you'd come see it. The sofa and I have given up. I've been busy. With Rachel. I looked at the boxes. Yes. Linda was quiet for just long enough to be kind. There's an antiques market in Springfield on Saturday. Come with me. I can't. Rachel and Ben are collecting more things. What time? They didn't say. So tell them. The idea of informing Rachel when I was available, rather than waiting to learn when she needed me, felt strangely formal. I'll call you back, I said. Don't wait 8 months. I texted Rachel that they could collect boxes between 8 and 9:30 Saturday morning or arrange another day. Her answer came immediately. We rented the van until noon. Then you should come early. We need more than 90 minutes. Ben loaded 7 boxes in less than an hour Tuesday. That was before you refused the pasta bowls. I read that twice, trying to locate the connection. At 8 Saturday morning, I opened the garage door. At 8:15, I carried out a lawn chair and sat in the driveway with coffee. At 8:30, I called Linda and told her I would be ready by 10. The van arrived at 9:23. Ben was alone. He climbed out wearing an old Ohio State t-shirt and a baseball cap. "Sorry, we got a late start." "You got a late start." He looked back at the empty passenger seat. "Rachel isn't coming." "Why?" "She thought it might be better." "For whom?" "Everyone with a pulse." I folded the lawn chair. Ben surveyed the garage. "We'll take the office boxes, the Christmas tubs, and those 2 chairs. What about the rug? Basement still smells damp." "Concrete?" He smiled reluctantly. "Apparently." We worked without much conversation. Ben carried the heavier boxes. I moved smaller items to the edge of the garage and checked them off a list I had made that morning. It was not an inventory. It was a list. I recognized the distinction was weakening. When we reached the plastic tubs, one lid slipped. A bundle of artificial pine garland spilled onto the floor, followed by a ceramic reindeer with 1 antler. Ben picked it up. "Was this broken?" "It has looked like that since 2009. "Good. Only in this family would that be good news." He wrapped the reindeer in garland and placed it back in the tub. As we lifted the second container, he said, "I asked Rachel not to give anyone a key. I nearly lost my grip." "What?" "To the new house. My parents, you, Marcus, nobody." We lowered the tub. "I didn't ask for a key. I know. I asked for the address. I know that too." He pushed his cap back. Sweat had darkened his hair at the temples. "I like having people over," he said. "I don't like people dropping in. My mother used to do it at the townhouse. Rachel would complain about her, then tell me it was different when she walked into your house without knocking. So you asked for a boundary." "Yes." "And Rachel turned it into secrecy." "I wouldn't put it that way." "How would you put it?" He looked into the garage, at all the parts of his household I had been storing. "I asked her to handle her side of the family," he said. "And then you didn't ask how she handled it." His eyes met mine. "No," he said, "I didn't." That was the first entirely honest thing either of them had told me about the party. "I wasn't going to appear in your kitchen at dawn, Ben. I know that. Do you?" "Yes." But when Rachel said you took things personally and might make a point of coming over whenever you wanted, it was easier to let her deal with it. Easier. He looked toward the van. I said, "You didn't have to invent the decision to benefit from it." No, he did not apologize. Oddly, his refusal to reach for a quick apology made me trust him more than I had on Tuesday. We finished at 9:58. I was late for Linda, and Ben still had 1 office box to wedge into the van. He saw me checking the time. "You have somewhere to be?" "Yes." The surprise on his face irritated me. "Rachel said you'd be home." "Rachel says many things about me." He closed the rear doors. "She's having a hard time with this." "I am too. She thinks you want her to come begging. I want her to collect her property. That's not all you want. No, it isn't." He waited, but I did not tell him the rest. I wasn't sure I knew it myself. Linda was parked at the curb when I came inside to change my shirt. She honked twice, then a third time for personal emphasis. At the antiques market, she bought a brass lamp shaped like a heron and spent 20 minutes arguing over a $5 discount. "You don't even like birds," I told her. "I like winning." We ate grilled cheese sandwiches at a diner afterward. Linda showed me photographs of her sofa. It was brown, rectangular, and indistinguishable from every sofa she had owned since 1974. "I'm sorry I didn't come see it," I said. She put down her iced tea. "This isn't about the sofa." "I know. You disappeared after David died, Ev. I was home. That is not the opposite of disappearing." I looked out the window. Across the parking lot, a man struggled to fit a rocking chair into a compact car while a woman offered advice from 6 feet away. I kept thinking everyone would rather not have me there without him, I said. Linda's face tightened. He was my brother. You think I wanted less of the person who knew how much I missed him? I didn't think of it that way. No, you were busy waiting to see who needed you. The words were too close to what Marcus had said. When Linda dropped me off, Rachel was sitting on my front step. She stood as I came up the walk. "Where were you?" she asked. "Out. I can see that." Her gaze moved to the brass heron lamp in my hand. "What is that?" "I'm not entirely sure." For 1 second, her mouth softened. Then she looked past me toward the house. "Did Ben tell you I was the one who didn't want you there?" I unlocked the front door. "He told me neither of you stopped it." Rachel followed me inside and shut the door harder than necessary. "That isn't the same answer," she said. "What answer do you want?" "I want to know what he said." "He said he asked you not to give anyone a key. He said you told him you would handle your family." Rachel's chin lifted. "Of course. Is that untrue?" "No, it's just convenient. For Ben, for both of you. Now he gets to be the reasonable one who wanted normal boundaries. You get to be the injured mother, and I get to be some monster who locked you out. I never called you a monster. You didn't have to. Joan did enough. My sister called you a monster. She said I had become a person she did not recognize. That's different. Joan recognizes monsters. She watches cable news. Rachel did not smile. I set the brass heron lamp on the table. Up close, it was uglier than I had realized. Its neck curved around the bulb, and its metal eye gave it the expression of a bird withholding medical results. "Why did you wait on the porch?" I asked. "Because my key doesn't work." "You could have called." "I did. Twice." My phone was still in my purse. I didn't hear it. "You always hear your phone." "I was with Linda." I gathered that. "Where did you go?" "An antiques market." Her eyes went to the lamp. "You bought that?" "Linda did. She says it matches my living room. It looks judgmental." That may be why she thought of me. This time, Rachel almost laughed. She caught herself and crossed her arms. "Marcus won't answer me," she said. "Maybe he's busy. He answered you. He brought me lunch." Of course he did. The bitterness surprised me. What does that mean? It means everybody is rallying around you. I didn't ask anyone to rally. You didn't have to. You sent the right message, and now I'm the villain. I sent the message to you. And then you called Marcus and Aunt Linda and probably Nate. Marcus called me. I called Linda because I wanted to see her. For the first time in 8 months, apparently. I stared at her. She shrugged. Linda told Joan. There was the family communication system in one sentence. Nobody could keep a confidence, but everyone considered themselves excluded if they heard the news forth. "I haven't discussed this with Nate," I said. "You didn't need to. He feels guilty. He should not. He thinks he caused all of it by calling you. You caused it by not inviting me." Rachel looked toward the ceiling as if asking the house for patience. "This is exactly why I didn't want you there." The sentence entered the room quietly. I pulled out a chair and sat down. "Explain that. You would have found something wrong. With the house, with the evening, with me. I wanted to bring a pie. You would have brought a pie when we already had dessert, and then everyone would have eaten yours because you would have stood there saying, 'Oh, don't mind me, I just made this little thing.' I don't sound like that. You absolutely sound like that. I would not have competed with your dessert. You don't have to compete. You arrive with history." I stopped. Rachel pressed her lips together. I could see her deciding whether to continue. "Remember Ben's promotion dinner?" she asked. "At the steak place?" "Yes." "That was 6 years ago. You told his parents about my first apartment. I told them about the bookshelf. You told them I made furniture out of orange crates because I was broke." "You did?" It was clever. I had just finished telling them I'd gotten promoted. We were sitting at a table Ben's father paid for, and you told everyone I used to pick through boxes behind the grocery store. They were clean crates. That is not the important distinction. I was proud of you. It didn't feel like pride. It felt like every time I tried to become someone new, you reached into your purse and pulled out the old me. I looked at her green blouse, the one I had given her, and remembered that dinner. I remembered Ben's father laughing and saying he had built a television stand out of cinder blocks. I remembered Rachel smiling. I had not noticed how fixed the smile was. You could have told me, I said. I did. When? In the car afterward. You said I talked too much. That was me telling you. That was you criticizing my personality in traffic. What was I supposed to say? Mother, your affectionate stories undermine the adult identity I'm attempting to establish? That would have been unusually clear for you. She pulled out the chair across from me but did not sit. At the house, I wanted one night where I didn't have to be the woman whose mother knew what everything cost and which wall Ben dented. I wouldn't have told anyone about the wall. You would have made a face when he talked about how smooth the renovation went. What face? The one you're making now? I relaxed my eyebrows. That's worse, she said. I wanted to stay angry. Anger was much easier when I pictured Rachel excluding me because Ben had asked, or because she thought I was too old, too emotional, too likely to wear the wrong version of elevated casual. This was more complicated. She'd wanted to stand in a finished room without me quietly carrying the unfinished versions of her in my expression. I understood it. I still wasn't willing to excuse it. You could have asked me not to tell stories, I said. You could have asked me not to correct the paint color or mention the dent. You could even have asked me to leave early, and you would have been hurt. Yes. So what's the difference? The difference is I would have been there. Rachel finally sat down. For several seconds, the only sound was the air conditioner and the small ticking noise the Heron lamp made as its metal cooled. You already knew everything, she said. Every delay, every fight Ben and I had. Every time we thought we'd made a mistake buying it. Because you told me. I know. Did you think I forced the basement smell out of you? No. You called me crying from a parking lot because the kitchen cabinets were the wrong height. They were 3 inches too low. I know, Rachel. I know all of it because you handed it to me. Then, when the house became something you were proud of, you decided my knowing was embarrassing. Her eyes filled again. This time I did not rush to undo the sentence. She rubbed beneath one eye with the heel of her hand. I wanted something that felt like ours. It is yours. It doesn't feel like it when half of it passed through here. That wasn't my choice. You could have said no. So could you. To what? To my help. She looked away. I understood then that we had both mistaken the same arrangement for love, just from opposite ends. I believed her dependence guaranteed closeness. Rachel believed my availability removed the need to consider what she owed the relationship. Neither of us liked hearing the bargain spoken aloud. She nodded toward the garage. Do you want me to stop calling you? No, because that's what it feels like. I want you to call because you want to talk to me, I do. You called today because Ben talked to me. I also wanted to see you. Why? The question wounded her. I saw it immediately. I'm your daughter. That tells me who you are, not why you came. She stood up so quickly the chair legs scraped the floor. You know what? I can't talk to you when you're like this. What am I like? Cold. I almost laughed. I had spent the entire conversation fighting the urge to hug her. I'm trying not to fix your feelings for you, I said. I didn't ask you to. You don't have to. She grabbed her purse from the table. What did you want me to say about Ben? I asked. That he had a part in it. He did. But you're angrier at me. Yes. She flinched. I wished I could soften the truth without changing it. You're my daughter, I said. That tells me why. Rachel stared at me. Then she whispered, I did want you there. My throat tightened. I just wanted it to be easy more. She walked out before I could answer. The front door shut with less force than the side door had. I remained at the table, looking at the chair she had left crooked. That sentence stayed with me because it was not an apology. It was worse and better than one. She had wanted me, just not enough to tolerate the person I actually was. The garage emptied in installments. Ben came the following Wednesday for the rug and 3 more boxes. Rachel came Saturday and loaded her winter coats, the final dining chairs, and a plastic bin of picture frames. We were polite in the stiff, over-careful way strangers are polite while sharing an elevator. She asked whether I needed anything from the store. I said no. I asked whether the pasta bowls had been delivered. She said yes. Neither of us mentioned the housewarming. With every pickup, the house became easier to move through and harder to inhabit. The hall closet no longer smelled like Rachel's perfume. My dining table returned to being a place where no one dined. When the contractor stopped calling, I missed the ridiculous urgency of their questions. I began eating Thursday dinners with Marcus. The first time, I invited him to my house. The second, he suggested a small barbecue place near his office. "You don't have to turn this into a standing appointment," he said when I asked about the following week. "I thought you wanted to be invited. I wanted to know I could be. That is maddeningly specific. We're related." Linda came over to plug in the heron lamp. It flickered twice and made a faint humming sound. "It's haunted," I said. "It has character. It has faulty wiring." She took it back to the market the next Saturday and returned with store credit and a ceramic bowl shaped like a cabbage. Our outings became less about antiques than about finding objects ugly enough to make the other person laugh. Rachel did not call for 9 days. On the 10th, I received an envelope in the mail. My name and address had been written in her careful block letters. Inside was a cream-colored card with a raised gold border. "Sunday dinner," it said. 5 o'clock. Below that was an address on Hawthorne Glen Drive. No note, no apology, no phone call. Just the information I had once asked for, dressed up like a peace offering. I turned the card over. On the back, Rachel had written, "Please come. I mean it." I read the sentence 3 times. Then I placed the invitation beside the brass key in the junk drawer and closed it. It stayed there until Thursday. I opened the drawer twice in that time. The first time, I was looking for tape. The second time, I had no reason except to make sure the address had not vanished. Hawthorne Glen Drive. I knew the street. It ran through a newer development near Hoover Reservoir, where all the houses had stone fronts, tiny trees, and names like the Hampton or the Fairfield. The development advertised itself as a neighborhood for people who wanted community, which usually meant there were rules about garbage cans. Rachel had lived 22 minutes from me for almost 6 months. Joan called Thursday evening. "Are you going Sunday?" "I haven't decided." "You need 4 days to decide whether to eat chicken." "How do you know she's serving chicken?" She asked for my lemon chicken recipe. "That's my recipe. I added capers." "You ruined my recipe. I improved it." "Are you going?" I took the invitation from the drawer and placed it on the counter. "Did Rachel call you?" "She called about the chicken." "Did she mention me?" "She said she invited you." "By mail." "Mail is how invitations work. She lives 22 minutes away. You timed it?" I looked it up. Joan sighed. "Ev, you wanted the address. She gave you the address. She gave me stationery. You have always liked stationery. I like stationery when nobody is trying to use it as a substitute for speech. Then call her." I turned the card over and read, "Please come." I mean it again. Why should I be the one who calls? Because I'm tired of being the one you both call. That doesn't answer the question. No, but it answers mine. She hung up before I could ask what her question had been. Saturday morning, I called Rachel. She answered immediately. "Hi, I got your invitation." "Oh, good." The relief in her voice made me feel mean before I had said anything mean. "It's very pretty. I ordered a box of them for dinner parties. Do people still send invitations to dinner parties?" "I'm trying to." I could picture her at the new kitchen counter, pleased by the weight of the paper, addressing envelopes in her precise handwriting. Rachel had always liked rituals she could prepare in advance. "Why didn't you call me?" I asked. "I thought the card would be nicer." "Nicer than what?" Another difficult phone conversation. That is honest. Well, apparently honesty is what we're doing now. I ignored the edge in her voice. "Who's coming?" "Joan and Nate. Ben's parents." Marcus was invited, but he said no. Did he say why? He said he didn't want to be used as a neutral observer. That sounds like Marcus. He's become very philosophical since you started buying him hamburgers. I bought him 1 hamburger. He told me about the milkshake. That annoyed me more than it should have. "Did you invite me because you want to see me or because everybody knows I wasn't invited last time?" Rachel was silent. That is exactly why I sent a card, she said. You turn every sentence into a trap. I asked a question. You asked a question where one answer makes me shallow and the other makes me a liar. There are other answers. Name one. I wanted to see you, and I was afraid you'd say no if I called. Her breath caught, almost too softly to hear. Fine, she said. That. You could have written it. I wrote, please come. That isn't the same. Nothing is ever the same if it comes from me. I sat down at the kitchen table. Rachel, I don't want to walk into a room with 8 people waiting to see whether we act normal. No one is waiting for anything. Joan knows. Nate knows. Carol knows something because Carol can smell tension through drywall. That pulled a small laugh out of her. Ben's mother is not that bad, she said. At your wedding, she knew your florist was angry before the florist did. She notices energy. She feeds on it. We were quiet for a moment, close enough to ordinary that it hurt. I'd like to see you alone, I said. We could have coffee Monday. I'm serving your chicken. Joan's chicken, apparently. You know what I mean. Yes. So come. I'm not ready to come for dinner. The quiet changed. Then why did you make such a big deal about not being invited? Because you didn't want me there. I want you there now. Those are 2 different nights. That's absurd. It may be. It's still true. Rachel's voice tightened. You've got the address. You've got an invitation. You've got me asking. What else am I supposed to do? Have coffee with me Monday, so you can ask me more questions and decide whether I'm sorry correctly? So we don't have to perform in front of the family. I'm not performing. You live-streamed your living room. That was one time. It was the time I'm talking about. She exhaled sharply. I'm not meeting for an apology inspection. Then we aren't ready for dinner. You aren't ready. Maybe. I heard a cabinet shut. I have to go, she said. The dining room is full of boxes, and Ben has decided they all need to be moved today. Where? What? Where are you moving them? Why does it matter? It doesn't. That was new for both of us. Sunday afternoon, I put on a navy dress at 4:30. I told myself I only wanted to see whether it still fit. It did, except the zipper caught halfway up my back. I twisted in front of the mirror for several minutes before accepting that I could either dislocate a shoulder or wear something else. At 4:45, I changed into slacks and a white blouse. At 4:50, I took off the blouse. By 5, I was wearing an old t-shirt and slicing a tomato over the sink. The card remained in the junk drawer. The address remained in my head. At 5:20, a car slowed in front of my house. I looked through the curtains before I could stop myself. It was a gray sedan searching for a number. I ate a tomato sandwich at the table and imagined Rachel carrying her lemon chicken into the dining room. She would place the platter in the center because she liked symmetry. Carol would praise the gold handles. Nate would make some joke too early. Joan would notice the empty chair and look at everyone except Rachel. Not going did not feel like victory. It felt like holding a door shut from my side and leaning my whole weight against it. Joan called the next morning. She left your place set for 40 minutes, she said without greeting. I didn't ask her to. I know. How was the chicken? Too many capers. I told you. Carol asked where you were. What did Rachel say? That you weren't feeling up to company. I closed my eyes. Did you correct her? No. Why not? Because I wanted to eat before the 2 of you destroyed another meal. I pressed my thumb against the invitation's raised gold border. Was she upset? Rachel? She served dessert. That isn't an answer. It is with Rachel. Ben came Tuesday evening for the final 2 office boxes and the long mirror package. He looked tired. There was a small cut on his forearm, covered by a strip of blue painter's tape. That is not a bandage, I said. It's what I had. I brought him a proper bandage from the bathroom. He peeled off the tape while I carried the mirror box toward the garage. You could have come Sunday. So I've heard. She made too much food. Rachel always makes too much food. She made your chicken. My sister has interfered with the ownership of that recipe. Ben pressed the bandage over the cut. She was trying. I know. He looked surprised. Then why didn't you come? Because trying is not the same as understanding. I don't think she knows what you want. I asked her to have coffee. She said you wanted to interrogate her. I wanted to talk without 6 relatives measuring the silence. That part I understand. We lifted the mirror together. The cardboard caught against the doorframe, and Ben swore under his breath. Turn your end, I said. I am turning, you're pushing. Pushing is part of turning. That explains the laundry room wall. He stopped and looked at me. Then he laughed. It escaped him so suddenly that I laughed too. For 10 seconds, we stood trapped in the doorway by Rachel's mirror, laughing like people who had forgotten which side they were on. Once we got it into the van, Ben leaned against the open door. The house is a mess, he said. It looked finished online. Everything looks finished if you point the camera the right way. I waited. There are boxes in the dining room, the basement, and my office. She keeps moving them because she doesn't like seeing them. Then she gets mad at me because I don't know where anything is. I'm sorry. Are you? About the mess. Yes. He nodded. Fair. He closed the van door, then looked at the house. What did you want her to do after the party? I wanted her to call me. She thought the invitation was an apology. It didn't say, I'm sorry. She thought asking you into the house meant it. Then she should have been able to tell me that. She was afraid you'd say it wasn't enough. She created a situation where I said it wasn't enough. Ben rubbed his forehead. You two make emotional chess look exhausting. We aren't playing chess. You both think 6 moves ahead and then get angry that the other person touched a piece. Thursday evening, Marcus and I ate at the barbecue place again. I told him about the invitation. You wanted to be invited, he said. I wanted to be wanted. That sounds expensive. It was a cream card, you know what I mean. I offered coffee. And? She said no. Marcus wiped sauce from his fingers. Then I withdraw half my criticism. Which half? The useful half. What is the other half? You liked knowing she missed you. I looked at him. You wanted the empty chair to teach her something, he said. I didn't know she left it set, but you imagined it. I had. I spent years making everything easy for her, I said. Maybe she can survive one uncomfortable dinner. She can. That sounds like agreement. It isn't. You were right not to go if you weren't ready. Just don't pretend being missed didn't feel like proof. I drove home angry with him because he was right in an especially Marcus way that offered no comfort. At 9:40, Rachel called. I answered and waited. She did not ask about paint, tile, packages, recipes, or contractors. Finally, she said, I don't know how to talk to you if I'm not allowed to need anything. The honesty of it left me still. You're allowed, I said. I'm just allowed to say no. That feels different. It is. She took a breath. The dining room is full of boxes. Ben says I made that happen. Did you? I don't know. It was the first question she had asked me that did not expect an answer. I sat at the kitchen table, listening to her breathe. Tell me something you don't need me to fix, I said. For a long time, she said nothing. Then she told me the lemon chicken had been dry. That sounds like Joan's fault, I said. It was your recipe. She added capers. The capers weren't the dry part. They distracted from it. Rachel laughed softly. It was not the laugh she used around company. That one came out bright and finished, ready to sit on a table. This was the small, breathy laugh she made when she was tired. Carol ate 2 servings, she said. Carol was gathering information. She asked why you weren't there. I heard. Of course you did. Joan called me before breakfast. Did she tell you I left your place set? Yes. I thought you might change your mind. I almost did. Rachel became quiet. I told her about the navy dress and the zipper. I left out the part where I had stood at the window when a car slowed down. Some humiliations belong to the person who endured them. You should get that zipper fixed, she said. I should stop eating onion rings with Marcus. You won't. No. Another pause opened. It did not feel hostile this time, only unfamiliar. Finally, Rachel said, I put the chicken in at 4 because the recipe card says an hour. It depends on the size. It did not say that. Food refuses to standardize itself for your convenience. I used 4 breasts, bone-in, boneless. There's your problem. I thought you didn't want me to ask you to fix things. I'm not fixing it. The chicken is already dead twice. She laughed again, louder. Then Ben said something in the background too far from the phone for me to hear. No, Rachel called to him. I'm talking to my mother. My mother. The words moved through me with an embarrassing amount of force. Do you need to go? I asked. No. He can find the extension cord by himself. I could have told her it was probably in the office box marked cables, unless Ben had moved it after taking the Christmas tubs. I kept quiet. Rachel told me Carol had brought a bottle of wine nobody could open because the corkscrew was still in one of the boxes. Nate tried using a screw and a pair of pliers. Joan announced that this was why civilized people bought twist caps. By the time they opened the bottle, bits of cork were floating in it, and Ben had strained the wine through a coffee filter. That is upsetting on several levels, I said. It tasted like hazelnut. The coffee filter was used? We realized that later. I laughed so hard I had to set the phone down. For 20 minutes, she told me about the dinner. Not the meaning of it, just the evening itself. Carol praising the same bathroom 3 times, Nate opening the wrong closet and causing 2 throw pillows to fall on him, Ben forgetting to turn off the livestream camera until Rachel discovered it pointed at an empty hallway. I listened without converting any of it into advice. When we ran out of details, the quiet returned. I still think you should have come, she said. I know. And I still think you're punishing me. I know that too. Do you think you are? Some of what I'm doing probably feels good because it makes you notice. That's a yes. It's not the only reason. It can be more than one thing. Marcus had said almost the same thing about my helping. I did not enjoy hearing my children sound alike when they were examining my faults. I'm trying to stop agreeing to arrangements that hurt me, I said. You could have started smaller. I could have. Like refusing the pasta bowls. I did refuse the pasta bowls. That was after you changed the locks. Yes, she sighed. This is why people begin with bowls. We said goodnight without solving anything. Rachel told me she loved me. I said it back. The next morning, I caught myself waiting for her to call again. She did not. Instead, on Wednesday, she sent a photograph of the coffee-filtered wine and wrote, in case you thought I was exaggerating. On Friday, she texted to ask whether I remembered which box held the extension cord. Before I could answer, another message appeared. Never mind, I'll look. I stared at those 4 words with more hope than they deserved. The last Saturday before the 30-day deadline, Rachel and Ben arrived together. The rented van had been replaced by Ben's pickup truck and a small open trailer borrowed from one of his co-workers. Only 6 boxes remained in the garage, along with a floor lamp, a vacuum cleaner, and the rolled rug they had already taken once and brought back because the basement smell had become an evolving situation. You returned the rug? I asked. Ben looked at Rachel. Rachel looked at the rug. It was temporary, she said. You returned something to my garage without telling me. We brought it Tuesday. How? My old garage code still worked. I had changed the house locks but forgotten about the detached garage keypad. Ben removed his cap and rubbed his forehead. Rachel held up both hands. I know how that sounds. Do you? Yes. Bad. It sounds bad. The floor sealer wasn't dry. That floor has been sealing since June. Ben said, there were moisture bubbles. I stared at him. I'm not defending the return, he added. I'm explaining the floor. I walked to the keypad and flipped up the plastic cover. The code is David's birthday, Rachel said. You don't know how to change it. I have the manual. You have every manual. Because people keep bringing me things without them. I'll change it for you, Ben offered. No, show me how. He did. I entered a new 4-digit number while both of them politely looked away. What did you choose? Rachel asked. A number. Obviously, one you don't know. Her face tightened, but she nodded. Fair. We loaded the rug first. Ben strapped it to the trailer with enough rope to secure a church steeple. Rachel carried the floor lamp. I moved the vacuum cleaner and 2 lighter boxes to the driveway. The final box was the one marked Things. Rachel stood over it with a box cutter. "We could just take it," Ben said. "There's nowhere to put things. That's why they're in a box. You don't understand categories. Things is not a category. It was when I packed it." She cut the tape and folded back the flaps. On top was a stack of framed photographs wrapped in bath towels. Beneath those were 2 candlesticks, an old address book, a ceramic bowl shaped like a fish, and a bundle of electrical cords that did not appear to belong to anything currently manufactured. "The extension cord," I said. Rachel pulled it out. "I looked for this for 2 hours. It was in Things. I thought it would be in cables." Ben looked personally vindicated. "Thank you." The 3 of us sat on the garage floor and sorted the contents. The fishbowl went into a donation box Rachel had brought. Ben kept the cords because he believed every unidentified cable would reveal its purpose the day after it was discarded. Rachel held up each photograph, deciding whether it belonged in the house, in an album, or nowhere. One showed David asleep in a lawn chair with a folded newspaper over his face. Rachel touched the glass with her thumb. "I took this," she said. "I know. How?" "Your finger is in the corner." A pink blur covered part of David's shoe. "I thought that was a flower. It was your thumb." She smiled. In another photograph, Rachel and Marcus stood on opposite sides of David at a family picnic. They were adults already, though younger enough to seem like different people. Marcus had one arm around his father. Rachel was laughing at something outside the frame. "Do you want this one?" she asked. "I have a copy." "No, you don't. It's in the hall. That's from Joan's 50th birthday. The one in the hall is from Dad's retirement. They look the same. You're wearing a yellow sweater in the other one." I looked at her. "What?" she asked. "You remember my sweater. You wore it constantly." I took the photograph and placed it in the pile beside me. Ben carried the donation box to the truck. Rachel remained on the floor holding the old address book. "Do you want me to throw this out? It's yours. It has all your handwriting in it. I wrote down numbers for you when your first cell phone died. You mean when I dropped it in the sink? You said it fell. It fell because I dropped it." She opened the address book. Several loose scraps slid onto her lap. A dry cleaning receipt, an expired coupon, a note in David's handwriting that said, "Call Furnace Man." Rachel pressed her lips together. "I'll keep it," she said. We taped the box shut again. Once everything was loaded, Ben swept the garage floor without being asked. Dust rose around the lighter rectangles where Rachel's belongings had sat. I opened both garage doors to let the air move through. "It looks huge," Rachel said. "I can finally park inside." "You never cared about parking inside. I never had the option. You did before. Before your renovation, yes." The word hung there, but neither of us used it as a weapon. Rachel went into the house to wash her hands. When she returned, she was holding the cream invitation and her old key. "You keep both of these in the junk drawer?" "I didn't know where else to put them. The key doesn't work." "I know." She turned it over in her palm. "Am I ever getting a new one?" Ben, who was coiling a strap beside the trailer, suddenly became intensely interested in his work. "Not now," I said. Rachel nodded once. I expected anger. Instead, she placed the old key back on the hall table. "What if I call before I come?" she asked. "That would be a good start. What about tomorrow?" I hesitated. "Not for anything," she added. "I don't need to store something. I don't need a recipe. I don't need you to call a contractor. You may need lunch. I usually do. Come at noon." She looked relieved, then tried to hide it by examining the empty garage. "Can Ben come?" "If he wants." Ben called from the driveway. "I can hear you." "I know," Rachel said. Before they left, she gave me the cream invitation again. "You should keep the address somewhere besides the junk drawer." "Why?" "So you can find us." I looked down at the card. For the first time, it sounded less like an instruction and more like a hope. I put the card on the refrigerator beneath a magnet shaped like a wedge of cheese. It was not a place of honor. The cheese magnet had come from Wisconsin and was missing the tip of one corner. Still, the address was visible. At 12:02 Sunday, the doorbell rang. Rachel stood on the porch holding a bakery box. Ben held a paper bag and a bunch of yellow flowers wrapped in plastic. "We called from the driveway," Rachel said. "I heard. We didn't want to arrive unannounced. You were expected. I'm establishing the habit." Ben raised the flowers. "I was told not to bring a package. Those don't require storage. They will eventually become compost. Come inside before we have to test that." Rachel entered and waited while I closed the door. Her eyes went automatically to the hook where her key had once hung, then moved away. The bakery box contained a lemon meringue pie. The paper bag held potato chips, 3 avocados, and a jar of salsa. "What meal did you think we were having?" I asked. "We panicked separately," Ben said. "I didn't panic," Rachel said. "The avocados were on sale. All 3 are hard. They'll ripen. So, this is a future lunch." She set them in my fruit bowl beside 2 apples. I had made chicken salad and sliced tomatoes from Joan's garden. I also had rolls, pickles, iced tea, and enough deviled eggs for twice the number of people coming. Moderation, like elevated casual, was a concept I understood better in theory. Rachel noticed the eggs. "I thought this was just lunch." "It is. There are 12. The recipe makes 12. The recipe makes 24 halves. You don't have to eat them. That has never stopped me." She took one before we sat down. For a while, the 3 of us discussed things that had edges but no sharp points. Ben's cut was healing. The basement floor had stopped bubbling. Joan had purchased a second air fryer and was trying to give the old one to anyone who made eye contact. Marcus's washing machine still made a grinding noise, though he had discovered that sitting on the lid during the spin cycle reduced it. "That sounds safe," Rachel said. "He's 46, I replied. "The warranty on my influence has expired." Ben ate 2 sandwiches and praised the chicken salad in a way that suggested he had been coached. Rachel asked whether I had moved my car into the garage. "Yesterday." "How was it?" "Like parking in a garage. You know what I mean. It was nice." She nodded, looking down at her plate. After lunch, Ben carried dishes to the sink. Rachel took out her phone. "I changed something," she said. I braced myself. She opened the recording of the house tour and showed me the description beneath it. The first line now read, "The cedar chest belonged to my grandmother and was restored by my mom, Evelyn." "You didn't have to do that," I said. "I know." "When did you change it?" "Last week. Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't want it to count as my apology. That is an unusually advanced understanding of apologies. Marcus said it. That explains it." She looked offended. I understood it after he said it. I read the sentence again. "You called it something you rescued," I said. "I know. It was never lost. I know that too." "Then why?" Rachel leaned against the counter. "Because people say rescued when they talk about old furniture online. It sounds better than, 'My mother spent 6 weekends sanding something I asked her to sand.' I wasn't asking for credit. You were hurt. I wanted the chest to still belong to its story. I know." She took the phone and scrolled to a still image from the video. The cedar chest sat beneath the tall windows, its old burn mark faintly visible along one corner. "I remember Grandma keeping blankets in it," she said. "They smelled like soap. Lavender. She used too much. She believed insects had moral weaknesses." Rachel smiled and put the phone away. The moment was good enough that I became nervous. Our family had a habit of distrusting peace until someone tested it. Rachel opened the refrigerator. "What time are we doing Labor Day?" There it was. "We aren't." She turned around. "What? I'm not having the cookout this year." "Why not?" "I made plans with Linda." "What kind of plans?" "There's an arts festival in Yellow Springs. We're driving down Sunday and staying overnight." "You're staying overnight?" "At a hotel. People still do that, but Labor Day is Monday. I know how the calendar works." Rachel shut the refrigerator. "You've hosted Labor Day every year, not 2020. No one did anything in 2020. Then precedent has been broken." Ben became busy rinsing a plate that was already clean. "When did you make these plans?" Rachel asked. "Last week? You didn't think to tell us? I didn't know you were waiting for an announcement. We always come here. You always arrive. Nobody has asked whether I'm hosting. You always host. That is not the same as agreeing." Rachel stared at me as if I had rearranged the walls while she was in the bathroom. What is everybody supposed to do? I looked at the two fully grown adults in my kitchen. "I imagine you'll think of something. You know what I mean." "Yes. You mean who will buy the food, clean the patio, set out chairs, make enough potato salad for Joan to take some home, and be here from 11 in the morning until the last person decides to leave. We help. You bring hard avocados." Ben placed the clean plate in the drying rack. "In my defense, I brought flowers." "You did." Rachel looked between us. "So this is another lesson." "No. This is a plan, with Linda. She is family. I didn't say she wasn't. You said her name like I'd joined a cult. I said it because you've seen her 3 times in a month after barely seeing her for years. That sounds like a reason to keep seeing her. What about Marcus? He can decide what to do. Nate is coming from Indianapolis. Did he tell you that?" He asked whether we were doing the usual. "What did you say?" "That I assumed so." I folded the dish towel and laid it beside the sink. "Then you should correct your assumption." Her face flushed. "Fine. We'll have it at our house." Ben turned off the faucet. "We haven't discussed that. We're discussing it now. Our patio furniture is still in boxes. Then we'll open the boxes. The grill isn't assembled. You've had it for 6 weeks. Because I was renovating your mother's garage out of our dining room. Don't bring her into this. I'm standing in her kitchen." I raised a hand. "You don't have to host anything." Rachel's attention swung back to me. "You'd love that." "What?" "If everybody did nothing and sat at home because you weren't available." The accusation startled me because a part of it found somewhere to land. I would not love that. "You want us to notice what happens when you stop. I do want you to notice. At least you admit it. That doesn't mean I want you miserable." "What's the difference?" "The difference is you can make your own potato salad." Ben made a noise that might have been a cough. Rachel grabbed her purse from the back of the chair. "We should go." "You just got here," I said. "We've been here 2 hours. 1 hour and 20 minutes. See? You even time it." I looked at the clock. Ben collected the bakery box. 5 slices of pie remained. "Leave 2, Rachel said. He paused. "For Evelyn?" "For whoever." He cut 2 slices and transferred the rest to a plate. I wrapped her portion in foil while Rachel stood by the door. "I invited you to lunch," I said quietly. I did not agree to return to every old arrangement. I thought lunch meant we were trying. We are. This doesn't feel like trying. It feels like you expected 1 meal to reset me. Rachel slipped her purse over her shoulder. Maybe I wanted one thing to be normal, I understand. Do you? Yes. I just don't want normal if normal means no one has to ask me. Ben opened the door. Rachel walked out, then turned back. For the record, I was going to offer to bring potato salad. You hate making it. I was going to buy it. That is not the same. She gave me a tired, incredulous look. You really are my mother. Then she followed Ben to the truck. The family group message began that evening. Rachel wrote that she and Ben would host Labor Day at 2, weather permitting. She included the Hawthorne Glen address and asked people to bring chairs if possible. Nate responded with 3 flag emojis for reasons nobody understood. Joan volunteered her improved lemon chicken. Marcus said he would bring beer. I stared at his message longer than I should have. He called 10 minutes later. You're going, I said. Yes, you should. You say that like I've betrayed you. I don't. You do it in the pauses. I have plans, I know, and I think it's good Rachel is hosting. So do I. You can think 2 things. I've recently been informed. He waited. I wish everybody missed it, I admitted. I know, that is unattractive. It's human. Those overlap more than people admit. Are you going to be angry with me? No, are you sure? No, but go anyway. Linda and I drove to Yellow Springs Sunday morning. She had booked one hotel room with 2 beds and packed enough snacks to survive an interstate closure. At the arts festival, she bought a blue glass vase she could not afford, and I bought nothing. We listened to a folk singer, ate kettle corn, and watched a woman demonstrate pottery while explaining that clay remembered every pressure applied to it. "That seems pointed," Linda whispered. At the hotel, Rachel sent a photograph to the family group. Everyone stood on her patio holding paper plates. Marcus was beside the grill. Nate wore a straw hat that made him look like a failed country singer. Joan had brought the cabbage-shaped bowl I thought Linda owned. Behind them, through the open doors, I could see the cedar chest. Linda watched me study the picture. "You can miss them without turning me into the consolation prize," she said. "I know. Do you?" "Yes." She took the phone gently from my hand and placed it face down between the beds. "You chose to come with me." "I did. That choice costs what it costs." I looked at her. "When did you get so wise? I bought a blue vase. I contain multitudes." We laughed, but later, while Linda slept, I turned my phone over again. There was a private message from Rachel. The grill took 3 hours to assemble. The potato salad was warm. Carol reorganized my silverware. We survived. Below it, she had sent another photograph. The front door stood open. No people, no decorations, no performance. Just the blue door and the quiet entry beyond it. "Next time," she wrote, "just you, no audience." I typed, "I'd like that." Then I deleted it because it sounded formal. I typed, "Okay." That sounded annoyed. I settled on, "Tell me when," Rachel responded before I could reconsider. "Thursday? Lunch?" I looked across the hotel room. Linda was asleep on her back, with one arm flung over her head, making a faint whistling sound. The blue vase sat on the dresser, catching light from the parking lot. "Thursday works." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. "I'll send directions." "You already sent the address. The GPS takes you to the service road." "Of course it does." She sent a laughing face. On Thursday, I changed clothes 3 times. The first blouse looked too dressy, as if I were attending a delayed ribbon cutting. The second made me look pale. I finally wore jeans and a blue cotton shirt Rachel once said matched my eyes. I disliked myself for remembering that and wore it anyway. Her directions included 7 turns, a warning about a roundabout, and the location of a mailbox shaped like a barn. The GPS worked perfectly. Hawthorne Glen Drive curved past rows of new houses trying hard not to resemble one another. Some had gray stone, some had brownstone. One had shutters that were decorative in the sense that they could not shut. Rachel's blue door was visible halfway down the block. I parked at the curb and sat with the engine running. The house was larger than I had imagined from the livestream. Not grand, just finished in that new house way, with dark mulch, narrow shrubs, and a lawn that looked recently unrolled. The front door opened before I got out of the car. Rachel stepped onto the porch and lifted one hand. "I saw you on the doorbell camera," she said when I reached the walk. "So there is an audience. It doesn't record inside. Comforting?" She hugged me. Neither of us had discussed whether we would. Her arms went around me cautiously, then tightened. I held her for one breath longer than I intended. When she let go, she looked at my shirt. "I like that color on you. I've heard." She smiled and stepped aside. For all the thought I had given that doorway, crossing it felt strangely ordinary. My shoe caught slightly on the rubber edge of the mat. Rachel told me to watch the step. I entered a small foyer with a narrow bench, a round mirror, and a basket containing exactly 1 folded blanket. "No one has ever used that blanket," I said. "You've been inside 10 seconds. It's folded too well. I folded it this morning." Then I'm right. Rachel looked toward the ceiling. We're off to a good start. The house smelled like coffee, new wood, and the lemon cleaner she used whenever she wanted a room to smell innocent. The cedar chest sat beneath the living room windows. I walked toward it without meaning to, Sunlight lay across the lid, revealing the grain I had uncovered under 2 layers of dark varnish. The burn mark near the corner was still there. So was the faint outline of the water ring. Rachel stood beside me. "You left that mark on purpose," she said. "Yes, I was mad when I first saw it." "I know." "How?" "You sent me 6 photographs and circled it in red. I thought you missed it." "I did not." She ran her fingertips over the pale curve. "Now I like it." "You don't have to." "I know." That was becoming our safest phrase. She opened the chest. Inside were folded blankets and 2 bars of lavender soap still in their paper wrappers. I looked at her. "I found them at a little store near Uptown," she said. "They're not the same." "No, Grandma's smelled stronger. Your grandmother was preparing for an invasion of moths." Rachel closed the lid. The living room was beautiful. I did not enjoy how much I liked it. The white dove walls looked warm, not like mayonnaise. The sofa was deep blue. The rug that had spent weeks rolled in my garage sat beneath a low table, without any visible damage from the damp basement. "You were right about the paint," I said. Rachel turned. "I need to record this." "No, say it again. The room is tolerable. You said I was right. Your doorbell camera must have caught it." She laughed and linked her arm through mine. The tour was slower than the online one. Rachel let me open closets. She showed me the pantry shelves Ben had installed slightly crooked and the repaired section of laundry room wall. "I can still see it," I said. "You cannot." The light hits the patch differently. "Do not tell Ben. He knows he dented it. He believes the repair is invisible. This belief is important to our marriage." The fireplace tile pulled green in daylight. I told Rachel so. "Thank you," she said. "Ben says it's blue. It's blue-green. That is cowardly. It's accurate." The basement did smell damp near the utility room, though not enough to justify the rug's travels. Half the floor was covered in boxes. Some had been opened and abandoned with their flaps spread. The bread machine sat on top of the dryer. "I was told that was unsafe," I said. "It has been moved 3 times. It always comes back. Perhaps it's migratory." Rachel leaned against the doorframe. "This is what the house actually looks like," she said. "I can see that. I didn't want you to see it like this." "Why?" "Because you'd offer to help." "I haven't." "I know. Is that disappointing?" "A little." I appreciated the answer. We ate at the kitchen island because the dining table was covered with picture frames Rachel had not yet hung. Lunch was tomato soup from a carton and grilled cheese sandwiches. One sandwich burned on the first side. Rachel scraped it over the sink with a butter knife. "I could make another," she said. "I've eaten carbon before. You're going to mention this for 10 years, only 6. Apparently, that is the statute of limitations on orange crates." Her scraping slowed. "I've thought about that dinner," she said. "So have I. I should have told you clearly." "Yes." "You also should have noticed." "Yes." She turned around. "You're agreeing with me? I don't want to become enlightened in a way that annoys you. It's too late." We ate the burned sandwiches. Rachel told me Labor Day had cost almost $300, not counting the grill. Nate broke a patio chair. Joan complained about the potato salad and then took the leftovers. Carol rearranged the silverware twice. "Did you enjoy any of it?" I asked. "Yes." The answer came quickly. "I was exhausted," she added. "But when everyone left, the house felt used, in a good way. That is why people do it. Is that why you did it every year?" "Partly." "What was the other part?" "I dipped the corner of my sandwich into the soup. If I hosted, nobody could forget to include me." Rachel looked down. I had not planned to say it. Once spoken, it sounded both pitiful and obvious. "Did you think we would?" she asked. "After your father died, I didn't know what held us together. We did. You had your own lives. That doesn't mean we were leaving." "I know." But being needed was easier than waiting to see. Rachel folded her napkin into a narrow strip. "Sometimes after Dad died, I felt like I couldn't say no to you." "When?" "Not to anything you asked. You hardly asked for things. That was the problem. You would call and say you were making soup, and if I said I had plans, I could hear the empty house behind your voice. I didn't mean to do that, I know. I wasn't trying to make you responsible for me. I know that, too. The words no longer felt safe. They felt sad. Rachel carried our plates to the sink. At the housewarming, people asked where you were, she said. What did you tell them? That you weren't into live streams and preferred to watch from home. I set down my glass. You told people I chose not to come? I didn't want questions. You mean you didn't want answers? Mom, at Sunday dinner, you said I wasn't feeling up to company. That was different. No, it wasn't. She turned toward me. If you exclude me, I said, you do not get to rewrite it as my preference. I was trying not to make it worse. For whom? For both of us. It made it easier for you. Yes? The answer stopped me. Rachel gripped the edge of the sink. It was easier to say you didn't want to come than to say I didn't invite you. It was easier to tell Ben you were fine watching online than to explain why I didn't want you there. It was easier to make everybody believe nothing happened, except me, except you. The refrigerator hummed. I was wrong, she said. It was not a grand apology. She did not cross the room or cry. She stood beside a dish rack with one hand still damp and looked directly at me. I was wrong to keep the address from you. I was wrong to tell people it was your choice. And I was wrong about the chest. My eyes burned. I looked away, toward the dining room full of unhung pictures. Thank you, I said. I'm still angry you didn't come to dinner. I know. I don't want that erased either. It isn't. She dried her hands. When it was time for me to leave, Rachel walked me to the blue door. The garage code is 4082, she said. Ben changed it after Labor Day. I don't need the code. I thought access was the point. An invitation was the point. What if you need to get in? Why would I? An emergency. I have a telephone. She frowned. I'm trying to show you I trust you. I believe you. I still don't need a code. The disappointment in her face was real. So was the temptation to accept something simply because she had finally offered it. I don't want a shortcut back to the old arrangement, I said. What do you want? To be asked, and to be able to say yes or no without either answer becoming evidence. That sounds complicated. It may take practice. She nodded. I walked down the path, then turned. Rachel was still standing in the open doorway. No camera next time? I asked. She glanced up at the doorbell. I can unplug it. That would be excessive. You come by it honestly. I drove home without needing her directions. When I pulled into my garage, my phone buzzed. Rachel had written, "Let me know you made it." I started to type that I was home. Then I added, "I like the house." Her reply came almost immediately. Even the green tile? Especially the green tile. 3 dots appeared. It's blue. I smiled and closed the garage door. The calls changed by inches. Rachel still phoned from stores, parking lots, and rooms where Ben was doing something she considered questionable. But she began catching herself. Do you remember whether she would start, then stop? Never mind. How was your day? Sometimes I answered the original question anyway. Sometimes I didn't. The choice mattered more than the answer. She called once to complain that Ben had put a floor lamp in front of an electrical outlet. Do you want me to agree with you or help you solve it? I asked. I want you to say, that's ridiculous. That is a form of agreement. Fine. I want agreement. It's ridiculous. Thank you. Another time, she told me about finding a coffee shop near the reservoir where the owner knew everyone's order. She did not ask me to meet her there or bring her anything. She simply described the cinnamon rolls for 5 minutes. I learned that wanting me and needing me did not always sound different. Sometimes we had to ask. I visited Marcus's house for dinner on a rainy Wednesday. He lived in a small ranch on the north side, with books stacked under the windows and framed concert posters I had never seen. I had been there before, of course, but always for a purpose. Moving furniture, dropping off food, waiting for a repairman when he could not leave work. I'd never noticed that he kept a bowl of guitar picks beside the television. When did you start playing guitar? I asked. 20 years ago. You do not play guitar. I own 4. That is not the same. He pointed down the hall. 4 guitar cases leaned against the wall. Why have I never heard you? Because I'm bad. I've listened to Rachel sing karaoke. My standards are survivable. He made pasta and burned the garlic bread. We ate at a table crowded with unopened mail and a mechanical part from his washing machine. You bought a new washer, I said. I fixed the old one. By sitting on it? That was diagnostic. He showed me how the failed bearing had worn down. I understood perhaps 1 word in 4, but I listened. Before I left, Marcus said, I'm glad you and Rachel are talking. We never stopped. You know what I mean. I do. He leaned against the front door. Just don't make me evidence that you're doing better without her. The accuracy of the warning irritated me. I have not done that. Not out loud. I invited you to dinner because you said I never invited you, and I'm glad. But I'm not the healthy child you discovered after the difficult one disappointed you. You are also difficult. Good. I have 2 difficult children. You raised us. He kissed my cheek before I could answer. The maple in my front yard had turned red by the time Rachel asked about Thanksgiving. She called while I was cleaning out the kitchen cabinet where I kept roasting pans, cooling racks, and lids that belonged to pots no longer in my possession. What size turkey are you thinking? She asked. I'm not. Too early. I'm not hosting Thanksgiving. There was a clatter on her end. What did you drop? A spoon. What do you mean you're not hosting? I mean, Thanksgiving will not be here this year. You always host Thanksgiving. We went through this on Labor Day. Labor Day is hamburgers. Thanksgiving is Thanksgiving. I appreciate the clarification. Mom. I pulled out a roasting rack with 1 missing foot. I don't want to spend 3 days cooking for 12 people. We help. You arrive with wine and ask where the corkscrew is. That happened once. At your own house. Fine. We could have it here? You could. The silence told me she had expected more enthusiasm. Our dining room is clear now, she said. That's nice. The table seats 10 with the leaf. Also nice. You could do the turkey here. I set the roasting rack on the floor. Why would I do the turkey at your house? Because your oven is small. My oven has cooked every Thanksgiving turkey since 1993. I mean, ours is bigger. Then yours should cook the turkey. I've never done one. You had never hosted Labor Day either. Turkey can make people sick, so can potato salad. That was not my fault. Carol left it in the sun. I took a breath. I'll bring cranberry relish, I said. Nobody eats cranberry relish. Then there will be plenty. You could make stuffing, too. I said one thing, stuffing and cranberry relish are basically one category, not in any kitchen recognized by law. Rachel sighed. Could you at least come early? How early? 10? What time are we eating? 4. No. Why? Because if I arrive at 10, I will host Thanksgiving in your house. You could just help. I can arrive at 2 and help with whatever remains. I am not managing the meal. That sounds like a rule you invented specifically to make me nervous. It is a rule I invented specifically to keep myself from taking over. I'm not asking you to take over. You asked me to cook the turkey, make stuffing, bring cranberries, and arrive 6 hours early. When you list it that way, it sounds like more. It is the same amount in any order. We settled on cranberry relish and 2 o'clock. The next day, Rachel texted to ask whether I still had Grandma's white tablecloth. I did. It had been in the same linen drawer for 30 years. You can use it, I wrote. Pick it up when you're nearby. Could you bring it Thursday? I'm coming Thursday, right. Sorry. A few minutes later, she asked about my gravy boat, then the electric carving knife, then the folding table from the basement. I wrote, make one list. Her list arrived that evening with 14 items. I agreed to lend 7. Ben picked them up Saturday, along with the tablecloth and my large roasting pan. He brought 2 plastic tubs with lids and promised to return everything washed. Rachel wanted the warming trays, he said. They haven't worked since Joan's retirement party. That's what I told her. You were not at Joan's retirement party. She gave me a detailed account. That sounds like Joan. Ben stacked the carving knife on top of the roasting pan. "She's nervous," he said. "Rachel?" "No, the roasting pan." I waited. "Yes, Rachel. She'll be fine. I keep telling her that. How's that going?" She hears it as abandonment. The word was heavier than the conversation had been. "Does she think I abandoned her?" I asked. "She thinks you're waiting for her to fail." "I'm not, I know. Do you? I think you want her to understand what you've been doing all these years. That is not the same as wanting her to fail." "No, but from the kitchen side, it might look similar." He lifted the tubs. "Did you want me to do the turkey?" I asked. "I want somebody to do the turkey." "You can. I'm in charge of the grill." "For Thanksgiving." "We need an alternate heat source." "Ben." "It's a large bird." I gave him my meat thermometer. The Sunday before Thanksgiving, Rachel called while I was at Linda's. The blue glass vase had developed a crack near the base, and we were testing whether it could safely hold water. "What shelf do you put the turkey on?" Rachel asked. "The lowest one that leaves room for the pan. But do I remove the other rack if it's in the way? How long does it thaw?" "It depends on the size. We haven't bought it." "Then buy one. I'm getting it tomorrow." "What does the package say?" "I don't know. I haven't bought it." I looked at Linda, who was pouring water into the vase over the sink. She raised one eyebrow. "Rachel, I'm with Linda." "I know. This will take 2 seconds. It has already taken more." "Can you just tell me whether you cook yours covered?" "I cover it at first." "At what temperature?" 325. "And for how long?" "Read the instructions that come with the turkey. They always overestimate. Then use the thermometer." Ben has one. He has mine. I thought that looked familiar. The vase began leaking through the crack. Linda held it over the sink while water ran down her wrists. "I need to go," I said. "Wait. What kind of bread do you use for stuffing?" "I'm not making the stuffing. I'm asking what kind." "Dry white bread." "From the bakery?" "Any bread becomes dry if you neglect it properly. Can you send me the recipe?" "Yes." Later. When I hung up, Linda said, "You answered every question. She was cooking a turkey. She was purchasing a turkey tomorrow. The timing matters. So do cracks." She held up the dripping vase. We decided it could hold wooden spoons. "Tuesday evening," Ben called. "Do you have room in your refrigerator?" he asked. "For what?" "The turkey." "No, you don't know how big it is. I know I'm not storing it. It's 22 pounds. Why did you buy a 22-pound turkey? It was the smallest fresh one left. You were supposed to buy it Monday." Rachel changed her mind about fresh versus frozen. "That turkey does not fit in your refrigerator. It fits if we remove a shelf, but she needs the shelf for pies." "What pies?" "The ones you're making." I sat down slowly. "I am not making pies." Silence. Ben said, "That is new information. It should not be." Rachel said, "You offered pumpkin and pecan. I offered cranberry relish." "Pecan cranberry? That is not a thing. It could be." "Put Rachel on the phone. She's in the shower. Then tell her the turkey stays in your refrigerator and there will be no pies from me. I heard him open a door. She says, 'You always make pies.'" "Is she shouting from the shower?" "She has excellent projection. Tell her I'll talk to her when she's dry." Rachel called 11 minutes later. "You make pies every year," she said, "and this year you are hosting. I thought you meant the location changed. I meant the work changed." "You never said no pies?" "I said I would bring cranberry relish. That doesn't automatically exclude dessert." "Yes, it does." "How?" "Because cranberry relish is what I agreed to bring." She let out a disbelieving laugh. "You're really going to show up with one bowl while I do everything?" "Yes. That is unbelievably petty. It is what guests do. You're not a guest. You're my mother. I can be both." "No, you can't. Mothers don't watch their daughters drown in gravy to prove a point. You are not drowning. You are hosting a meal. You know what I mean? I do. You want me to step in before you have to find out whether you can do it. That's not fair." Neither was telling Ben I offered pies. I didn't say offered. I said you always bring them. You expected the habit to answer for me. Her breathing went tight. "I am trying," she said. "So am I." It doesn't feel like it, because my trying now includes saying no. It feels like you get to decide when you're my mother. I always decided, Rachel. I just never said the decisions out loud. She went silent. Then she said, Ben thinks I don't know how to ask for help without assigning it. Is he wrong? That is a cruel thing to ask. It is also a question. You love questions now. I've always loved them. You preferred the ones I answered for you. She hung up. On Wednesday afternoon, I made the cranberry relish. I also baked a pumpkin pie. I told myself I wanted pie in my own refrigerator. I told myself I could decide Thursday whether it left the house. At 9 that evening, Rachel sent a photograph of the turkey wedged into her refrigerator beneath a shelf tilted at an alarming angle. Beside it sat 2 store-bought pies. Ben solved it, she wrote. I enlarged the photograph. The pumpkin pie on the left had a cracked crust. The pecan pie had slid sideways in its box. I looked at my own pie cooling on the counter. For 10 full minutes, I considered carrying it to Rachel's house and leaving it at the blue door before she could thank me. Then I wrapped it in foil and wrote Evelyn's pie across the top. Not Mom's, not Thanksgiving, mine. I carried the cranberry relish to the car at 1:40 the next afternoon. Then I went back for the pie. It sat on the counter beneath its foil, labeled in my handwriting like a lunch in a shared office refrigerator. I stood over it with my coat on, trying to decide whether taking it meant I had surrendered something. That was the danger of turning every choice into a boundary. Eventually, even generosity could look like retreat. I peeled off the strip of masking tape that said, Evelyn's pie, put the pie in a carrier, and took it because I wanted to share it. Rachel opened the blue door before I rang. Her hair was pinned on top of her head with a wooden spoon. I couldn't find a clip, she said. Your hair is touching something that will soon touch food. It has been a difficult morning. The house smelled like turkey, onions, and something sugary burning at the edge. I held up the glass bowl of cranberry relish, one agreed-upon item. Then I showed her the pie. She looked at it, but did not reach for it. You made one. I did. You said you weren't making pies. I made it for myself. Why did you bring it? Because I chose to. We stood in the doorway facing each other over the pie carrier. Rachel nodded. Thank you for choosing to. She took the cranberry bowl, not the pie. It was such a careful distinction that I nearly laughed. Inside, Thanksgiving had spread itself across every flat surface. The dining table was set with Grandma's white cloth, my gravy boat, Rachel's new dishes, and 3 different patterns of silverware because she had underestimated the forks. The folding table stood at one end beneath a brown cloth that did not quite reach the floor. Ben appeared from the kitchen wearing an apron that said, Kiss the Grill Sergeant. Carol bought it, he said before I asked. I assumed it was court-ordered. The turkey is at 150. Temperature or speed? Internal temperature. What time did it go in? 9:30. That seems early. Please don't say that where Rachel can hear. I can hear you, Rachel called. Ben took the pie. You made one. I made it for myself. Good. I was prepared to eat all of it. The 2 store-bought pies sat on top of the refrigerator because there was nowhere else to put them. The pecan filling had settled back into place, but the pumpkin pie's cracked surface looked like a drought map. Your pie isn't replacing those, Rachel said. I didn't say it was. Good. You can serve all 3. That's excessive. You invited Nate. She conceded the point. Joan arrived 15 minutes later with lemon chicken. Rachel stared at the foil-covered dish. We're having turkey. I know, Joan said. Then why did you bring chicken, in case the turkey is bad? Ben turned toward the sink and put both hands over his face. Nate came carrying 2 bags of ice and wearing the straw hat from Labor Day. Marcus brought beer, as promised, along with a socket wrench because Ben had mentioned that the folding table wobbled. Carol and Ben's father arrived with wine, rolls, and a centerpiece so tall that anyone seated behind it would have to communicate by messenger. By 2:30, the kitchen was full of adults offering incompatible instructions. Carol wanted the turkey covered. Joan said covering it would ruin the skin. Nate stood with the oven door open and asked whether anyone smelled plastic. "Close that," Rachel said. "I'm checking." "You're lowering the temperature. It smells like a grocery bag. Nothing plastic is in the oven." Ben looked through the small window in the door. "The pop-up timer is leaning." "Is it supposed to lean?" Rachel asked. Every face turned toward me. I held up both hands. "I brought cranberries." Rachel looked betrayed. Marcus opened a beer. "This is going well." The turkey reached the proper temperature almost an hour early. Rachel wanted to leave it in the oven. Ben wanted to take it out. Joan said it could rest under foil. Carol said foil trapped steam. Nate had found the plastic smell in the wastebasket and no longer had an opinion. "Mom," Rachel said, "what would you do?" I could hear the strain under the question. "Do you want information or do you want me to take over?" "Information. I'd take it out, cover it loosely, and warm it before dinner if necessary." "Will it dry out?" "Everything dries out eventually." "Mother, it will be fine." Rachel took the turkey out. No one died. The potatoes were lumpy. The green beans were finished too soon. Ben dropped the serving spoon into the sweet potatoes and splashed his apron. The gravy did not thicken. At 3:15, Rachel stood at the stove whisking with increasing violence. "It looks like broth," she said. "It needs flour." I added flour. "When?" "Just now, directly." "That's what the recipe said." "Which recipe?" "The one online. Never trust a recipe that tells you its life story before listing ingredients." She kept whisking. The mixture developed pale lumps that circled the pan like tiny dumplings. "Can this be fixed?" she asked. "Yes." "How?" I told her. She stared at the pan. "Could you help me?" The question was plain. No assignment hidden inside it. No assumption that my hands were already hers. "Yes," I said. I poured part of the gravy into a bowl while she whisked a flour and butter paste. We worked side by side, bumping elbows twice. She listened without arguing. I resisted correcting the way she held the whisk. The gravy came together. "You fixed it," she said. "We fixed it." She tasted it from the spoon. "It needs salt. Everything needs salt." She added too much. "We fixed that too." At 4:10, we sat down. The centerpiece moved to the floor after Carol realized no one could see around it. Joan's chicken occupied a corner of the folding table and was eaten mostly by Joan. The turkey was slightly dry at the edges and perfectly good in the middle. Rachel sat at one end of the table. Ben sat at the other. I was between Marcus and Carol, facing the living room windows. The cedar chest was visible behind Rachel. Nate raised his glass. "To the first Thanksgiving on Hawthorne Glen." We all lifted our drinks. "And to surviving the turkey," Ben said. Rachel pointed her fork at him. "You bought it. You approved it. You said 22 pounds was reasonable." I panicked. The table relaxed into laughter. For a while, conversation moved easily. Carol complained about a neighbor's wind chimes. Joan claimed the city had changed the timing of traffic lights specifically to inconvenience her. Marcus explained the washing machine bearing to Nate, who pretended to understand. Then Carol looked toward the cedar chest. "I love the story you added under the video," she told Rachel, "about your grandmother." Rachel glanced at me. "It was always Grandma's chest," she said. "I should have said that the first time." Nate tore a roll in half. Aunt Ev did an amazing job on it. "Yes," Rachel said, "she did." No one applauded. Carol asked what kind of wood it was, and I told her cedar. Joan corrected me that the outside veneer was walnut, which was technically true and socially unnecessary. The moment passed. Halfway through dinner, Nate said, "I still feel bad I ruined the surprise for you, Aunt Ev." The room changed. Rachel put down her fork. "You didn't ruin anything," I said. "I should have realized you didn't know. You had no reason to." Carol looked from me to Rachel. Ben became interested in his mashed potatoes. Nate said, "I thought you just preferred watching online." "That's what I told people," Rachel said. Her voice was steady. She folded her napkin and placed it beside her plate. But it wasn't true. "I didn't invite Mom." Joan stopped chewing. Rachel continued before anyone could rescue the silence. I wanted the party to look a certain way, and I was worried she'd say something that reminded me of everything that went wrong during the renovation. So I told Ben I was handling it, and I told everybody else she preferred the live stream. Carol looked uncomfortable. Nate looked as if he wanted to crawl under the folding table. Rachel met my eyes. It was cruel, she said, and Nate had nothing to do with it. Nobody spoke. Then Joan said, "Well." It was the most dangerous word in her vocabulary. I reached for the rolls. "Ben, pass these to your father." The table began moving again, not smoothly, not normally, but it moved. After dinner, everyone tried to help at once. Joan wrapped chicken nobody wanted. Carol rinsed plates, though Rachel had asked her 3 times to sit down. Nate carried the folding table into the garage and nearly took out a light fixture. Marcus loaded the dishwasher with the grim focus of a man defusing a bomb. I washed the gravy pan. Rachel came to stand beside me. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I know. Are you angry I said it at the table?" "No." "Embarrassed?" "Yes." "I'm sorry. So were you." She looked toward the dining room, where Carol was insisting the cracked store-bought pie tasted homemade. "I didn't plan to say it," Rachel said. That may be why it sounded true. Ben passed behind us carrying glasses. He squeezed Rachel's shoulder without stopping. By 7, the house was quiet. Marcus offered me a ride home, but I said I had my car. Joan left with 3 containers of leftovers in the cabbage bowl, which apparently had changed owners twice without documentation. Carol took the centerpiece. Nate forgot his hat. I found it on the patio chair and brought it inside. Rachel was sitting on the cedar chest. "Put it by the door," she said. "He'll come back when he reaches Indiana." I set the hat on the bench. "You should go," she said. "Are you throwing me out?" "No, you look tired. I am. So am I." I sat beside her on the chest. For a while, we looked at the dining room. The white tablecloth was stained with gravy. 2 wine glasses remained on the table. The picture frames that had covered it during my first visit were now hanging on the wall, not quite straight. "I thought today would prove something," Rachel said. "What?" "That I could do what you do. You hosted Thanksgiving." "You did. I needed help. So did I. Every year. You never looked like it. I wanted everyone to think it was easy." She turned toward me. The contradiction reached us at the same moment. Rachel gave a short, tired laugh. "That's irritating. Very." She traced one finger along the chest's old water ring. "I thought needing you made me look small," she said, "especially in front of Ben. He already knew." "I know." That made it worse. "Why?" "Because when we fought, I called you. When the townhouse felt too cramped, I sat in your kitchen and complained. When this renovation went wrong, half our marriage happened at your dining table. You wanted one evening without the evidence." "Yes." "And you used my house to get it." Her eyes filled. "Yes." The word landed with no defense around it. I let Ben's request about keys become an excuse, she said. He wanted privacy. I wanted a version of my life where I hadn't needed anybody. I wanted a version where being needed meant I could never be left out. We sat with that. Neither version had survived contact with the truth. Rachel wiped her face with the side of her hand. "Do you miss me coming in without knocking?" she asked. "Yes." "Then why can't I have a new key? Because missing something isn't the same as wanting it back. That sounds like Linda. It sounds like therapy, which means Linda probably stole it." Rachel leaned her shoulder against mine. "I don't want this to be permanent," she said. "Some of it should be." She stiffened. "The locks," I said. "The packages. The assumption that I'm always available. Those changes are good." "What about us?" I looked at the blue door, now closed against the cold evening. "We should change, too." She waited. "Not disappear," I added. Her shoulder relaxed. At the door, Rachel hugged me. This time, neither of us was cautious. When she let go, she said, "Come next Sunday." "For what, dinner?" "Who's coming?" "You." "Ben, he lives here, so I've heard. No Joan, no Nate, no audience. No live stream. I'm asking because I want you at my table. I looked at her. 5 o'clock? She asked. Yes. She opened the door for me. Behind her on the cedar chest, Nate's ridiculous straw hat sat where her hand had been. For once, she had invited me before the room was ready. At 4:57, I parked at the curb. I had not brought a pie, salad, flowers, or a container I expected returned. My hands felt indecently empty. The blue door opened after I rang. Not before. Rachel wore jeans and an apron with flour on it. You're early, by 3 minutes. I was counting on those minutes. I can stand outside. No, come in. She hugged me and closed the door behind us. The house smelled like rosemary and roasting beef. Music played quietly from a speaker in the living room. No relatives talked over it. No comments floated up a screen. My eyes went to the cedar chest. A small framed photograph stood on the lid beside the lavender soap. My mother was in the picture, maybe 40 years old, kneeling in her garden with one gloved hand raised to block the sun. She was laughing at whoever held the camera. I found that in the box marked Things, Rachel said. I haven't seen it in years. Do you want it? No. The answer surprised her. It belongs there, I said. She looked at the photograph. I thought so too. Ben appeared from the kitchen carrying a dish towel. Welcome, he said. We have a minor role situation. How minor? Smoke has not entered the living room. Yet, Rachel called. He had made the rolls himself. They were arranged on a baking sheet in 8 pale lumps, each a different size. The recipe said uniform, he said, but I reject conformity. They look like potatoes, I told him. Thank you. That was not praise. Rachel had cooked a pot roast. The potatoes and carrots were already in the pan, and a pot of green beans simmered on the stove. She opened the oven, checked the roast, and closed it again without asking me what I thought. I sat at the kitchen island. It was difficult. Not sitting. Sitting came naturally. The difficult part was watching her move between the stove and counter without standing up to straighten, stir, taste, adjust, or remind. She reached for salt. I pressed my lips together. She added what looked like too much. I kept my lips pressed together. Rachel turned. You look like you're holding in a sneeze. I'm relaxed. Your shoulders are touching your ears. I lowered them. She smiled and continued cooking. A few minutes later, she brought me a spoonful of the sauce from the roast. Would you taste this? Do you want my opinion? That is why people ask someone to taste food. You've been known to want confirmation. Tonight, I want information. I tasted it. It's salty. I knew it. It's not ruined. How do I fix it? You could add water or unsalted stock. She looked toward the pantry. I have stock. Then you have your answer. She added it herself. Ben put the rolls in the oven and set 2 timers, one on the stove and one on his phone. Then he sat across from me. I owe you an apology, he said. Rachel glanced over. Are we doing that now? You said before dinner. I meant closer to dinner. How close? Emotionally. Ben looked at me. This is my life. I have heard. He folded the dish towel on the counter. I didn't ask Rachel to keep the address from you, he said. But when she did, I let it happen because it solved a problem I didn't want to discuss. Your problem with people dropping in. Partly. My problem with conflict, too. He looked toward Rachel. She was listening, though she kept her attention on the green beans. I knew you had helped us, he continued. I knew the chest came from you. I picked it up from your garage 2 days before the party, and I didn't ask whether you were coming. No, I told myself Rachel had handled it. That wasn't good enough. No, I'm sorry. Thank you. He waited, perhaps expecting more. I forgive you, I said. I'm still not taking calls about grout. That seems fair. And if your mother begins dropping in, you should speak to your mother. His eyes widened slightly. That seems less fair. Rachel laughed. The oven timer went off. Ben opened the door and smoke rolled into the kitchen. The rolls, Rachel said. They've been in 8 minutes. You set it to broil. I did not. The top heating element is red. Why is broil an option people can select accidentally? He pulled out the tray. All 8 rolls were black across the top and raw underneath. Potatoes, I said. I accept your apology. We ate without bread. The dining table had been cleared of boxes and picture frames. There were only 3 place settings, 3 water glasses, and a bottle of wine Ben had opened with a proper corkscrew. The white tablecloth had been washed, though a pale gravy stain remained near one corner. "This doesn't have to be fancy," I said. Rachel unfolded her napkin. "It isn't. You ironed the tablecloth. I enjoy ironing. You own a garment steamer because you said ironing was patriarchal. I contain contradictions. You've been talking to Linda. The pot roast was tender. The green beans were overcooked, but I ate them without comment until Rachel asked. They're soft, I said. That means overcooked. It means soft. They're overcooked. Yes. She took another serving anyway. For a while, we talked about ordinary things. The reservoir was attracting geese. Joan had tried to return the cabbage bowl and accidentally left it in Marcus's car. Nate recovered his straw hat but denied owning it. Linda's blue vase now held wooden spoons and leaked only when someone forgot its new purpose. Rachel asked about Marcus's guitars. He played for me, I said. You're lying. He played half of Hotel California. Why half? He forgot the rest. I didn't know he played guitar. Neither did I. That quieted both of us. There were entire rooms in the lives of people we loved that we had never entered. Sometimes because they had closed the door, and sometimes because we had been too busy standing in a different hallway. After dinner, Ben cleared the plates. I'll make coffee, he said. I'll help, I offered. No, Rachel said. The word came out too quickly. Then she added, please stay here. Ben carried the dishes into the kitchen. Water ran. Cabinets opened and closed. Rachel folded her hands on the table. I practiced this, she said. That is never a reassuring beginning. I had a whole speech. Where is it? I forgot it when you criticized the salt. I provided information. Right. She looked down at her hands. I'm sorry I told you to watch online like everyone else. The words landed differently in that room than they had in my kitchen. There was no laptop between us now, no blue door I could not locate. I knew how it sounded, she continued. Maybe not before I said it, but while I was saying it, I knew. I waited. I wanted you to feel unreasonable for asking, she said. If I could make you embarrassed enough, you would stop, and I wouldn't have to admit I was excluding you. You succeeded. I know. Her voice broke. I'm sorry I used your house like it belonged to me while treating mine like it was none of your business. I'm sorry I took the chest before the party. I'm sorry I told people you chose not to come. She wiped one cheek. I chose what was easy over what was decent. I chose it over you. My eyes filled. The table between us seemed much too large. I need to apologize too, I said. Rachel shook her head. You don't have to make it even. I'm not. I don't want you to forgive me because you found a way to blame yourself. I won't. That surprised both of us. I leaned forward. I gave more than you asked for and pretended that meant I never had to ask for anything back, I said. I made myself useful because usefulness felt safer than saying I was lonely. Then I expected you to understand the arrangement without my ever naming it. You still didn't deserve what I did. No. Her chin trembled. I'm learning not to erase my own hurt just because I understand yours, I said. You may find that inconvenient. I already do. I laughed through my tears. Rachel came around the table and sat in the chair beside me. She took my hand. Do you forgive me? She asked. Yes. The answer felt clean. She closed her eyes. I forgive you, I repeated. I am not changing my locks. She laughed and cried at the same time. I wasn't going to ask. You asked 3 weeks ago. I've grown. 3 weeks is not growth. It is a tomato. What? Something can ripen in 3 weeks. People take longer. That doesn't make sense. It did when I started. Ben returned with coffee, saw our faces, and stopped. Did I miss the emotional part? Yes, Rachel said. Can we do a short version? No. He handed me a mug. We sat in the living room afterward. The cedar chest held our coffee cups, the lavender soap, and the photograph of my mother. Rachel told me she wanted to keep the old marks on the lid. I told her the wood would need oil in the spring. "Are you offering to do it?" she asked. "No." "Good. I can show you." Also, good. Before I left, Rachel reached for her phone on the entryway table. For a moment, I thought she planned to take a photograph of the three of us. Instead, she held down the power button and shut it off. "What are you doing?" Ben asked. "Nothing." "Then why did you turn off your phone?" "Because nothing doesn't need evidence." She put it in the drawer. The new arrangement did not turn us into better people overnight. Rachel still called with questions she could have answered herself. Sometimes I answered. Sometimes I said I was busy, and she learned not to treat that as an emergency. One package arrived at my house by mistake. I refused it. Rachel called the company instead of calling me. She did not receive a new key. She began ringing the doorbell even when she could see me through the window. I kept parking in the garage. Some Sundays were quiet. No one needed soup, a contractor, an opinion, or a place to put a box. At first, the silence felt like proof that I had made myself unnecessary and therefore forgettable. Then Linda would call about an ugly lamp, or Marcus would invite me over to hear the second half of a song he still played badly. Sometimes nobody called, and the day remained mine. Rachel and I spoke less often than before. We said more. She invited me to dinner instead of sending a link. I invited her to lunch instead of cooking and hoping she appeared. Ben returned every borrowed item except the electric carving knife, which he denied having until Rachel found it beneath the passenger seat of his truck. By spring, the grass around Rachel's house had taken root. The small trees along Hawthorne Glen grew leaves. The photograph of my mother remained on the cedar chest. One Sunday, my doorbell rang at 11:58. Through the glass, I saw Rachel on the porch. She was empty-handed. No package, no laundry, no box-marked things. She had called first. She rang anyway. I opened the door.